Can I get a roll call?
Sorry about the oops. Ralph, can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay, President Swanson,
Here.
Clerk McNary,
Here.
Dr. Hazen.
Here.
I believe Trustee Otmar is absent at the moment and Trustee Brian Swanson.
Here.
Superintendent Porras.
Here.
And I believe Assistant Superintendent Jordan is also absent.
Yeah, he will join us at 6.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Moving on to the adoption of the agenda, Ralph.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. We have one item on consent item A that will be pulled because the DJ is being changed. And so we'll be pulling consent I and then have a walk-on contract for services with DJ John Upshaw, which is technically replacing that one. And it's, as you recall, this is the fingerprint issue. The walk-on is really replacing consent I, but since it's a walk-on, we need that as an action item so it can be tagged on to anywhere you would like in the agenda.
Okay, so can we do it as a, we'll call it a, we'll do it right after we approve consent and we'll just call it walk-on. What's the best way for us to?
You can call it a walk-on item I guess you could call it walk-on A because it's
its own category.
We'll know what it is. Yeah.
Okay, walk-on A. So I'm writing that in. Okay, and that was the only change. That was the only walk-on. Elliot, you're looking at me. Do you have any comments about the agenda?
Nope, just trying to follow along.
Dangerous to glance over here. I might call on you. Okay, any board members with comments on the adoption of the agenda? No. And Lewis, anyone, any member of the public? Okay, seeing nobody online, I don't see anyone here in person either. I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by Trustee Hazen. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson.
Aye.
Clerk McNary.
Aye.
Dr. Hazen.
Aye.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you all so much. Agenda has been adopted. Next up is essentially opening up closed session for us. So on closed session, we have this afternoon 5 items. Negotiations for PGTA and CSEA, some updates, planning and preparation for both of those. Conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation. Public employee discipline / dismissal / release / complaint, and superintendent goals review. Those are the 5 items we're going to discuss in closed session. And do I have any board comments on closed session? No. Ralph, how do we now acknowledge that Trustee Otmar has arrived?
We could just acknowledge it that she arrived at whatever time it is, 5:04. That's
5:04?
fine. If you just announce it into the record, that's fine.
Okay, 5:04, Trustee Otmar is here. And Trustee Otmar, do you have any comments on closed session items?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any members of the public for any topics? I don't have my glasses on, but it doesn't seem like you all are moving very much. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, and so with that, we're going to move into closed session. And remind me, I don't think we need to take a vote on that, right, Ralph? We're just adjourning for closed session?
We're just adjourning for closed session. That's
Okay.
correct.
Adjourn for closed session. All right, everyone, welcome to the February 2nd Pacific Grove Unified School District board meeting. Welcome to all of you. I'm excited for you all to be here and excited for you to speak during staff comments or public comments because we love our public comments and we haven't had very many lately. So I'm really excited for you all to be in this room. We are coming back out of closed session. I'm going to report some action taken, and actually in closed session, we spent the entire time discussing superintendent goals review. And so that means that we are going to come back as a board after our open session and get updates on the following. We're going to get updates on negotiations related to PGTA, negotiations related to CSEA, information and update on conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation. And as well, we will discuss public employee discipline / dismissal / release / complaint. And with that, I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please stand. Thank you, Elliot, for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Next up on our agenda, we're going to do written communications, and this is the part of the meeting where the board members report out any written communications they received from the last board meeting. So I have a list of communications that I received, and these are as of 1 o'clock today. That's kind of when I cut it. And so anything I got after 1 o'clock today will show up in our next meeting. So I'm going to read these off. Okay, so I got an email related to the adoption of the Playworks playground curriculum and if it allows for unstructured time. I got an email related to Forest Grove, my presentation done by local author Heather Lazaire related to her book called My Life in PG. I got 2 emails related to, sorry, it's hard to talk with my mask and breathe. I got 2 emails related to traffic safety, commission with the city related to Robert Down and the community center crosswalk. I got 1 email related to an attorney at DWK related to governance training. I got 6 emails related to establishing a volleyball team for freshman girls at our high school. And all 6 of those emails were in favor. I got an email related to a COVID test for a student at the middle school. An email related to the surplusing of tables at Forest Grove. An email related to school health education through Aspire Health. An email that was an invitation to a healthy youth task force locally. An email from a concerned parent related to first grade at Forest Grove. I got 2 emails related to Title IX compliance and questions related to that in our district. I got 5 emails, all against having a skate park near homes in the Country Club Gate area of Pacific Grove. 1 email that had overall concerns about Forest Grove. 1 email that was a thank you from Superintendent Van Norman, who's a superintendent in San Antonio. Josh, you're nodding. Superintendent in San Antonio School District, which is in the far reaches of southern Monterey County. And then I also got, lastly, an email that had some information about funding, federal funding, building better schools, and I passed that on to Ralph and Josh Shorn. That concludes my written communications. Board members, please contribute any that you have received.
I'll go second, I guess.
Yeah, please.
I got an email from a parent about the high school heat being out for the classroom for a few days and really wanted to highlight the importance of ensuring funding is available for preventative maintenance to prevent that. Thoughts and input from a number of parents on the land acknowledgement that's coming later. Question from a parent regarding replanting plans due to the loss of trees from the storms, and then an email and a number of comments regarding the security response to yesterday's event.
Thank you, Trustee Hazen. Trustee Otmar, anything?
Yes, I received 3 emails about the skate park location. I received more than a few emails about starting a JV volleyball team. And I also received an email about land acknowledgement and then a couple emails about the events that occurred yesterday. That's all.
Thank you. Clerk McNary.
Thank you. I think your list was pretty thorough, President Carolyn. The only addition I have is emails back and forth with Community Human Services and my role on that board as an alternate. So.
Okay, thank you. And Brian.
Nothing additional. I think it's all pretty well covered, what you guys already shared. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, trustee Swanson. All right, so moving on to board member comments. Tonight, we're gonna start with trustee Otmar. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I just have a couple. I did have a question. I wanted to talk about dyslexia screening. I know President Swanson, this is something you had brought up previously. I'm wondering what grade we begin screening. I just think early screening is very important, and I'd like to see this at some point on the future agenda item. And do you know what grade we start screening, Dr. Bordas?
I don't know. I would actually need to ask Director Davies if she's online. I don't know if she's on there. Can you unmute her? Was prepared, so I don't know if she's.
Oh, that's okay. I can bring it up again at another time.
We may have to get that for you at another time.
That's fine.
And actually, trustee Otmar, you know what? In March, we're gonna have a dyslexia screening report.
Excuse
it-
me.
Oh,
I'm so sorry, you
go ahead,
guys.
Claire.
We're having trouble unmuting me. We start dyslexia screening in kindergarten.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Well,
And
that
we
answers
are
that question.
preparing a report for you, a very thorough report. And we look forward to our opportunity to share with you the screening that we do, that does occur in our district, and the intervention that we provide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Davies.
And my second comment was actually just a thank you to Mandy for the fantastic meeting minutes. And for me, they were thorough, but also concise. So I just wanted to say thank you to her because I knew that took some extra effort. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Trustee Brian Swanson?
I've barely been in town the last couple of weeks, but I'm going to repeat what I said a couple of weeks ago too, because we started earlier tonight than we have over the last few years. But what I said a couple of weeks ago rang true again tonight, and I see a full audience here. I want everybody to know it's like when we're back there too, the group of people that I'm sitting with, it's an impressive group and their hearts are really in the right places. And when we're talking about what's happening here within the district, it's also, we're talking about how we integrate with, how do we take care of the students, the parents, the teachers, staff, the community as a whole. And I'm really often overwhelmed by that, it's not an easy thing to do, but we're getting together earlier to try to work through these things. I just want people to know that it's like we really do care. It's a great group of people, and sometimes there are not easy answers. Often there are not easy answers to what we're doing, but I'm happy to be and proud to be sitting here with these other folks and with the leadership that we have here too, trying to solve the problems and issues that we face every day. Well, that's all.
Thank you, trustee Swanson. I've got a couple comments, and then I actually have just a brief comment from our student trustee, Ray Avila. So I'm going to read his first. He's not here tonight, but he wishes that he could be. He was at an away basketball game because he's always juggling his schoolwork and his sports obligations and his entire life. And so we're really thankful that he's part of our board. So he says, I have no major updates. Spring sports have started and winter sports will be coming to an end here in the next couple weeks. Our winter ball is this Saturday at Bayonet and Black Horse. And that's it. So that's from our wonderful student rep, Ray Avila. And then my own board comments. I've got a few. The Traffic Safety Commission for the City of Pacific Grove is moving forward on installing a crosswalk. And that's really exciting to me because I love public process. I love public meetings. I love public comment, as I mentioned earlier, but this one really was wonderful because there was a few parents at Robertstown who had a safety concern. They brought it up to the city directed them to the Traffic Safety Commission. They put it on the agenda, they talked about it, and in a pretty short turnaround time, which is kind of rare sometimes for government, and schools are government too. So no offense to anybody. it's slow in a good way sometimes, but this actually turned around quickly. So the city is going to be installing shark teeth, those white triangles before a crosswalk, as well as a crosswalk at 14th Street and Unipero. And there's another component of that the families are asking the district, and I know Josh is working on it, and is going to investigate with Director Anderson, and they're asking if the gate at Robert Down can be moved up then to correlate with the corner, so that the gate will feed who's ever coming out of it straight into the crosswalk instead of down several yards, because we know that sometimes if you're a kid or even an adult, you're excited to go to the community center for maybe your chess club practice. If you're kind of coming out of the gate, you might be inclined to just run across the street. But if you're up further where the crosswalk is, perhaps that will create even more safety. So I just thought that was a really cool success story. And thank you to the city for doing that, for installing the crosswalk. So next thing is I am the district's representative for the Monterey County School Board Association. And we had our meeting last week, this week, I'm not sure. It's all running together, but it was recently, and we had a really great meeting. And they're working on an event that's going to take place in March. It's going to give a local organization an Excellence in Education Award. So more on that later. I know you're all really curious. And then let's see. The last thing I want to ask about is, and just kind of bring up, so this is kind of LCAP season, which is our local control accountability plan for our district, where we kind of work with our stakeholders in our community and develop goals, kind of line them up with our budget, and then we submit it to the state. It's a report that goes to the state. And I just wanted to make sure, I'm sure we are, but I just wanted to make sure that we're involving students in that program, in that process, I should say. We're holding meetings. We have parents who are there. We have parents from a variety of different backgrounds and circumstances. But I saw this wonderful flyer today for Salinas Unified High School District, Salinas Union, sorry, high school district. And they were like, we're involving the students, we're giving them service learning credit, we're doing all these things to really make sure the student voice is part of this. And I think it's actually Trustee Hazen who sometimes says, let's make sure we have all the voices in the room. And so I just really wanted to make sure that we have all the voices in the room for the LCAP process. And so those are my board comments tonight. Thank you. And I will continue talking because I'm the one who's going to keep talking. So go ahead, Clerk McGarry, do you have any comments?
Thank you.
welcome.
Just a couple, and I'll keep it brief, Brian. I have been in town. I attended, I think about a couple weeks ago, the Trials of Robin Hood at the high school. It was hilarious. So funny. Principal Garcia, now that it's not running anymore, makes a special appearance twice, not as a target at all, but kind of as a target. It was really interactive. I took my kiddo who the audience was filled with other high school kids, and they were all really awesome. And it was the tiny little theater at the high school that I didn't know existed. And it was super intimate. And thank you to all of the students who put on the show, and Desma Johnson for all of her hard work. She was even passing out homemade chocolate chip cookies at intermission, which was rad. I hope it's not the last awesome show for that group of kiddos. And with that lead up, Matilda is at the middle school this weekend, and that'll be playing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'm hoping to check that out as well. I attended a new board member orientation for the Community Human Services, and that organization provides mental health, substance abuse, and homeless services to middle and low income people in Monterey County. And we are part of a joint powers authority agreement. There are 8 school boards and 8 cities. So in learning about my role on that board, there are a lot of resources that CHS provides and is willing to provide to our district as a member of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what type of presentations and resources we'll be able to access in our connection with CHS. So it's a really great organization. And I think that's all for me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Trustee Hazen, do you have anything?
Yes, I hope everyone is able to take some time to relax over February break the week after next. I've been lucky enough recently to go to a number of middle school games this week. I unfortunately missed the basketball game tonight due to being here for the 7th grade girls, but I just wanted to give a shout out to the coaches in particular and all the effort they put into supporting our children, seeing the fun interactions the kids have on the court. It's outside of the school, but still inside the school is really powerful. Also, one quick update from our home. My son, who's in 3rd grade, asked me, "Cómo te llamas?" which I give full credit to the ASC Spanish class after school. I really, in my heart, thought he said "Cómo te amo?" So that's what I'm going to stick with, which would be, "How much do I love you?" So anyway, that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did I miss any trustees' comments? Do we have them all? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, next up is superintendent report.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few items and I'll defer to the agenda. First off, I'm glad the skateboard park was brought up. Just had a chance to speak with the city briefly on kind of what's going on. Again, just as a reminder that at this point in time, it's still under their jurisdiction. It's their topic until they kind of determine which direction they're wanting to head. And so the survey, as many of you probably have seen already, is lending itself towards the Forest Lodge Road area and not Washington Park. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's where it will end up being recommended, if it's recommended at all. So we're waiting to hear back from them. It's probably not sometime until mid to late March that they'll have some relatively good direction from the council, and then we can kind of be invited in the conversation and decide how we want to participate or not participate. So anyway, we're kind of in a holding pattern with that one. So our response back in general, when we get feedback, is that it's not in our jurisdiction just yet. So as soon as it does, we'll be able to then engage. I also want to just comment on the volleyball team process. For those that have been asking, we've been working diligently with the high school. Principal Garcia and Chris Morgan have been working on an assessment, which is kind of one of the first steps in regards to looking at adding another team to the high school sports program. And that assessment is pretty much completed. We're going to review that, and then we'll bring the product of that assessment back to the board for consideration of adding another team. We would need to also make sure that we work with the union in regards to the stipend list, because that's a negotiable item, and then to implement that and all the associated costs. And that's something that you'll see from the assessment part of it. So we're getting closer now as that rolls forward. So I'll give you more information when we have it, but it's almost there. We're getting very close. And then last but not least, I wanted to just share that appreciating everyone's patience. And we had a couple of debriefs today already as well with some of the staff. I was at Forest Grove today, and a couple of the other staff members I spoke with, debriefing the secure campus from yesterday. And first and foremost, appreciating the staff for the work that they did, just corralling the students and being ready and engaging with students and helping them feel comfortable. We even got a parent letter from regarding one of the teachers at Forest Grove who really helped de-escalate a student that was on the spectrum and needed some help to just de-escalate. And she did an amazing job, and it was recognized. And it's just wonderful to see that happening. And it's not a surprise, to tell you the honest truth, because you all do that work every day. But in any event, we're going to continue to debrief a little bit more. We sent out a letter today to staff and families as we've begun doing an after event update, just to let folks know a summary as we know to this moment, and then sort of next steps. Well, the staff brought up some really great ideas at Forest Grove when I was there, just in regards to things that they could use in regards to support, so resources, personnel, those kinds of things. We'll throw it all into the hopper and kind of muddle through it to figure out what can and can't work so we can move forward. I do want to just make a couple notations because this was asked of me, and so I wanted to mention it. First and foremost, the secure campus was initiated by Pacific Grove Police Department. So law enforcement initiated the secure campus. It wasn't something that we initiated directly. It was in response to a police event that was happening in Monterey, as everyone knows now at this point, San Carlos School in Monterey, which is kind of just a few blocks away from the district office in Monterey Peninsula Unified. The chief and I were in communication the entire time, getting updates, seeing what was happening, response, that kind of thing. We can't speak to other school districts as to whether or not they went into secure campus why or why not, if they did or didn't. We were focused on what we were doing here. The release, the school district, the event happened right getting close to when school was being dismissed. So I spoke with the chief at 2:50 to get, what do you want us to do in regards to just releasing students or not releasing students? The event at that point in time was still far enough away. The law enforcement released the secure campus for us, just enough for us to be able to dismiss the students, ask the students to go directly home, have parents come bring them up. And then once students were released from school, to go back into secure campus. As it turned out, the release didn't come until later afternoon from Monterey Police and their comms program. And so that was sort of the order of events that went with it. We definitely learned some lessons along the way in regards to wording on how we worded some of the emails that went out. There was some confusion that came down the pike in regards to in the message, it was referring to come pick up your student. We didn't include the wording when the school day is done, which is an important piece to include. And in the course of all of it, we were looking at the clock, watching the clock. And of course, you write, come pick up your students, because we're looking at the clock, seeing the time, not fully grokking that we got to accommodate that the high school lets out later than the elementary schools let out. And there's some varying times. We tried to get a message out as soon as possible to the parents that are affected, which went out shortly thereafter. So again, well, lesson learned, we're going to do a better job at kind of noting that, but tried to make it as effective as possible. And I think last but not least, I want to assure people that while it may have seemed that there was an overreaction on the part of the police department in calling the secure campus, I laud them for their interest in making sure that our students and families were safe. It was just a question in their mind of that, and they immediately called the schools in the interest of students. And I agree wholeheartedly. And that's so the first outcome was our students and our staff were safe. And then the whole incident ended with us in a safe condition. And we were able to put into place the programs that we have into place for student safety. We'll learn our lessons and move forward. But appreciating everyone that gave us input, we'll continue to work and improve as we go. But I wanted to make sure that we had a little bit of a debrief on that for everyone. And I've gotten a lot of emails over the last couple of days for folks making some recommendations, and I certainly welcome those. And if I want to keep them going, that's fine by me. So we'll go from there. That's what I have for tonight.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to PGUSD staff comments on non-agenda items. And it is 6:56 right now. We do have not a time limit on public comment, but if we are spending more than 20 minutes on one particular subject matter, we do kind of ask that maybe, I don't want to cut anyone off tonight, but we do ask that keep that in mind. We do have a 20-minute limit on items that are of the same content. So with that, I will let everyone start. We're going to start with everyone here in person first, and then go online. So if anyone would like to speak online, please start figuring out how to raise your hand and hang out, and we will get to you. Thank you so much. You have the mic.
There we go. Good evening. My name is Laura Leona. I am a teacher at the high school and this year's PGTA president. Tonight, we are here to express our disappointment in the district's opening offer of 2.5%. We feel that in a year of extreme inflation, this offer falls short of the definition of good faith bargaining. It is our hope that we can return to the table to truly negotiate a fair and equitable salary increase that addresses the rise in costs affecting all of us. Thank you.
Hello, Sally Richmond, Pacific Grove High School. I'm sure that when you came up with your 2.5% increase plus $1,000 on healthcare, you got plenty of advice from Deputy Superintendent Jorn and Superintendent Porras. I wanted to give you our perspective on this and what we've been seeing over the many, many years that this has been going on. So back in about 2017, I want to say, we were all called to the auditorium, all of us teachers, and we were told in no uncertain terms that we were headed in a very bad way financially. We were running a deficit for that year of about $700,000. We were looking at $1 million deficit the following year, and we all left thinking that we were going to end up with pink slips. I was the newest member of the math department, and I was planning on finding other employment because I did not think I was going to have a job the following year. Well, the following year rolled around, I still had a job, and that $1 million deficit had turned into a $367,000 surplus. The following year, we were told, well, we have a very small surplus. We can't afford to give you a very big raise because it's such a small surplus. It was projected to be $222,000. Turned out to be $716,000. The following year, we were looking at a $249,000 surplus. It's such a small surplus, we can't afford to give you a bigger raise or we will be deficit spending, is what we were told. That year, we ended up with a $1.4 million surplus. So my problem is that every year we hear we can't afford it. We're going to be deficit spending. We'd love to give you more, but we just can't do it and be financially solvent. And every year that $1 million deficit turns into a surplus. So what I'm asking is that you take these budgets with a grain of salt. I looked back at the projected revenue versus the actual revenue over the last 5 years. And in general, the projected revenues are short by about $1 million. So the surplus or the delta for the projected versus the actual was 1.3 million, 1.4 million, 899,000, 857,000, 1.7 million. Granted, the last one was probably during COVID times, and COVID just threw a whole mess into the budget. But from our perspective, we're constantly being told that you can't afford the raises. And then we turn around and we see the next year that it wasn't as bad as what we thought. So we would like you to take that into consideration and reconsider that initial offer that you made to us. Thank you.
Hi, Christina Renteria, Robert Down Kindergarten. I usually have, in fact, I have never gotten up here to speak, but I felt super impelled to come up here to speak and to share with you the feeling of the insult of 2.5. I felt insulted because I just think back when I'm looking back and I hear the news that inflation's at 6.5%, the property tax roughly about 7.9%, and COLA's at 8.7%. And to be offered 2.5, I was floored yesterday. Went home and just thought about it, and I thought, I have to speak, and I can't just sit around and not share how frustrating it is to hear that. And with that, I just want to leave you with a definition of COLA, cost of living adjustment, but it's to keep in line with inflation to help with our wages. And clearly 2.5 is not even close to what our COLA, the COLA that is coming in. So keep that in mind. And I don't have a prepared speech or anything. I'm just speaking from frustration. I hope you hear us, but we're all here. We all feel so thank you for listening.
Thank you. If there's anyone else here in person who would like to make their way up to the mic, please do.
Travis Selfridge. I teach at PG High. I used to teach at Monterey High. But it makes me wonder, with this 2.5%, should I be back at Monterey High? It's kind of a sad thing to think about, that after 25 years in teaching, I'm in a position where I got to look at my family and we're going, man, we're barely making it to the end of the month now. My mortgage isn't getting any steeper, right? So why are my paycheck not reaching the end of the month? And we're just not keeping up. And I'm one of 2 teachers in this district in the family, right? My wife teaches here. And for us to not be able to keep up after teaching for 25 years, it's really sad. And that's it. It's just talking about me and my family, okay? The other part of it is my kids. How are we going to attract teachers when they can make more, live cheaper in cities near here? How are we going to attract them good teachers to teach here if we can't even keep up with the pay? And then ask them to drive from far away. It just doesn't make sense. This 2.5 just doesn't make sense. It is an insult. Thanks.
We don't have anyone online who has raised their hand. So if there is someone listening online who thought that they raised their hand or is wishing to, please do. And I don't see anyone else here in public making their way up to the microphone. Please do feel welcome. We want to hear from you. We're glad you're here tonight, and you're not even close to being 20 minutes in. So maximize if you would like. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi there. My name is Madeline Portella. I teach at the high school. I currently do not live in the district, and I didn't plan on speaking tonight. I don't have anything prepared. I do not live in this district. I don't think I ever will be able to. I have a sizable student loan deficit that I am paying off, and at this rate, it's probably going to take me at least 10 years. It has delayed my family planning. It is really hard to think about my future, and I don't have family in California. I am from New York, and there are big questions in front of me, and there's options, and it makes it hard to think about what I think the staff deserves and what I think this community deserves and where to go next. And I think there are really great things to be done, and so much potential to grasp onto, and I want to be a part of that. And I really think it's possible. So thank you for listening.
Louis, do you see anyone online who, I don't see anyone either. Okay. Please, y'all came here, we're all here so late. If anyone would like to speak up, I know it's nerve-wracking to do, but please come and speak to us.
Hello, I'm Mark Afifi and I teach physics at the high school. I just want to let you know, Maddie is awesome. And if you don't know what a great teacher she is, and really you should do everything you can to keep her here. She's fantastic. Hi, back. A long time ago, we had board members come to the negotiations. I think that would be a really cool thing for you guys to do. And year after year, as my esteemed colleague Sally Richmond said, the ending budget was always much better than it was projected during negotiations. So it would be great if we as teachers, I have my pay stub, I looked at it, and there's deduction for medical, dental, vision, $2,700 comes out of my paycheck for that. That's a lot of money. It would go a long way to do things like pay for college tuition for my son, housing, that kind of thing. The costs are going up. So 2.5, as you heard, was really very insulting. I hope we can do better.
Hi, my name is Lisa Ogburn. I'm a special education teacher at the high school. And I have a coworker who couldn't be here tonight, and she asked me to share some of her thoughts. She doesn't currently live in Pacific Grove, but she does live on the peninsula, and her property taxes are going up by $2,000 this year. Her family is spending more than $500 a month on electricity to keep them warm. And when I hear that Salinas Union was offered an 11%, and of course they accepted, and 2.5 is about a quarter of that. So are we valued a quarter of much? Does this school board value us 25% as much as Salinas values their teachers? Like, that's the question that comes in my mind. And I find it super interesting that we're looking up to them and valuing what they do on their LCAP, but not maybe taking their initiative and following what they're doing in regards to showing their teachers how much they appreciate what they do and how much they understand the cost of living on the peninsula, and how important it is to recruit qualified, competent teachers. I know more than one teacher more than one person who wanted to be a para who would not apply, wouldn't even give it the effort in Pacific Grove because the commute wasn't worth it. The money wasn't worth it. The health insurance wasn't worth it. If the school district wants to continue to recruit qualified teachers, maybe take like a play out of the other school district's books.
We have one person online, so please do make your way up, and we're going to take the one person online. But it just says Luciano, but I have a feeling perhaps it's Mrs. Luciano. So Miss Luciano, you have the floor, and then we'll go to you next.
Hi, good evening, board and community members. Christina Luciano. I'm a first grade teacher at Forest Grove. And as the previous commenter just mentioned, I actually do not live in Pacific Grove. I commute 5 minutes to an hour. I live in Salinas, and I make the commute every day. And I can't help but think, gosh, how much easier things would be if I just drove 5 minutes to work. It would make my life vastly easier. And to hear that other teachers are receiving an 11% increase is really, like the previous commenters have said, it's really disappointing to hear that we are being undervalued. And we're going to start losing really valuable, wonderful teachers to other districts who are being more competitive with their pay and their benefits. So I really hope that we can come up with something that is a meaningful and fair offer that doesn't feel like such a slap in the face for teachers.
Thank you, Miss Luciano. We have an individual here in person.
Hi, my name is Heidi Friery. I am a speech and language pathologist, and thank you for being here to listen to us tonight. This is my first year working for the district, and I'm still getting emails from Salinas City Elementary School District. And just now I got an email and they're talking about their what they're requesting. They're requesting a total of 14% on scheduled salary increase retroactive to July 2022. And I can only speak for myself, but as it was just me, and my insurance was 100% paid for. So, and they're asking for this. So I don't know. I don't know much. This is the first time I've been to a school board meeting, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like we're comparing apples to apples here. And I also wanted to say, I've observed one of Maddie's classes. She's amazing. And if pay her what she needs to stay, because she's amazing. And we don't want to lose good teachers just because they can't afford to live here. So thank you.
Thank you. We've got one individual online, Anastasia Aziz.
Hi, thank you. I'm a parent right now of a high schooler and a middle schooler, and my kids went through Forest Grove. And I just want to support paying teachers' health insurance 100% for families. I think that's really important to make sure that the teachers and their families are healthy and can access healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else here in person coming up to the mic, and I don't see anyone online. So last call for PGUSD staff members to come and speak. Okay. We're going to close this part of the meeting, and we're going to move on to individuals desiring to address the board. And so actually, we might just take a 60-second break if folks are wanting to leave and considering that, but don't want to disrupt our meeting. It's okay. We're going to take a 60-second break and you can get up and go if you would like. Sure.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I really appreciate hearing everything you guys had to say. It's important.
Thank you for listening, you guys. Thanks.
Bye. Good night.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's just feeling bad.
Okay, we're back. We took a 60-second break in case anyone just logged in and was curious if their sound was working or not. We are here and we are ready to roll. So the next item up on the agenda, we just concluded PGUSD staff comments. We're moving on to individuals desiring to address the board. And this is for anyone who is here in public tonight who would like to give a 3 minutes speech, presentation, whatever, on any topic that's within our jurisdiction. We do limit it to 3 minutes and overall to 20 if it's on the same topic in general, but I don't think that's going to happen tonight. So any individual, if you're online or if you're in person, please do come on up. And it looks like we've got one person, Miss Aziz online, who has raised her hand. And Miss Aziz, you have the mic.
Thank you very much, Chair and members of the board. I'm calling on two issues. One is my son is at PG High School and the heating system that's been out. His classroom, C4, which is physics in the morning, and I think Mr. Afifi was there. My son said it was 50 degrees. And I'm just, I'm just at a loss for words why it's 50 degrees, but it's freezing in there. So it's not a conducive learning environment. And please just allocate funds to get ahead of the infrastructure maintenance for the high school, for the middle school, for Forest Grove, and probably for Robert Down. I just think the facilities really need funding. When you're looking at your budgets, just please look at things, listen to your facilities people to get ahead of these problems so that kids aren't sitting there in freezing cold classrooms. And I understand that, you know, space heaters were brought in, but please just think of that and get ahead of these issues. Also, I'll just say when I was at the high school open house, the interiors really need to be refreshed as well. Like the blinds don't work, they're full of dust. So just please allocate some money for some capital improvement projects. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is my daughter's at the middle school. And she's freezing too in one of her classes. I think the heat is working there. However, there is teachers that still want to have the windows completely open and fans on. And I believe it's due to COVID, and I am sympathetic to that. But it's not, again, a conducive learning environment when the kids are sitting there freezing cold. So I think that whole discussion should happen as well, given sort of where we are in that COVID climate. And I know it's contentious, but we're 3 years in, we have a whole bunch of different tools, and kids are pretty resilient. I think the data has shown that as well. And she's sitting there cold. So those are my comments. Thank you very much for listening.
Ms. Aziz, we appreciate your comments so much. And I don't know if we have any answers for you this evening, but your questions bring up questions in my own mind because I wasn't aware that the boiler was broken or the heat is broken at the high school. So
Been repaired.
it's been repaired. Mrs. East, we have fixed your problem, I guess, at least at the high school. So please do check back in with us though, if your child continues to tell you that they're cold, because I know you're probably giving us current information. So, okay. All right. Thank you for that update. We do have someone here in person who would like to speak. Please go ahead.
Sally Richmond, Pacific Grove High School. I would like to comment on the boiler issue as well. It is a shame that it has been out and it's wonderful that it has been fixed. However, this is the third year in a row that it's gone out. Last year it was out for at least a month and the temperature wasn't 50, it was in the 40s. So the issue is that a big storm comes in, we lose power, something goes kerflooey with the boiler every single season. So this is something that I don't know what the fix is, but it's clearly not a one-off if it's happened for the last 3 years in a row. Thank you very much.
And perhaps Ralph or Josh, you could give a little bit of an update on that in the Friday newsletter to families, if you wouldn't mind. Just a few sentences on what you plan to kind of tackle with that. Sounds like it might be ongoing. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Shamas.
Beth Shamas. Just in regard to negotiations, Mr. Ofifi mentioned that it was probably when I was there that because I don't think anyone has gone into negotiations from the board since when we did it.
2006 was the last time.
Okay. Oh, that was me. And it's a CSBA discourages this, and I'm not sure why, but it really is helpful. We did it with a combined training that the board and the teachers union, as well as CSCA, all went to the same training to kind of decide on the method that you were going to use to do your negotiations. And it's not all the board members, it's just, 2 people that go in, and it's very educational and helpful. So I enjoyed it and I felt like it was worth it. It's good for relationships. And the other thing is PG is a strange duck in terms, I mean, when you heard them comparing it to Salinas Union High School District. Okay, I worked in that district. So I'm familiar with them, and they it's hard to compare them, but the one thing that is really crazy here is the benefits. Your benefits package is just odd as far as what you offer or don't offer. And I know that's complicated, but if you guys could start thinking out of the box on benefits, you could really do something good for your teachers in terms of helping them get more money in their own paychecks instead of paying out to the benefits. So it does require some, creative thinking, but don't say no to it. That's what I've seen before, is like, oh, there's nothing we can do, and we are a small, we're considered like a kind of a country district hospital wise. And so that, and you probably know this, Ms. Odmar, but it creates issues as far as what is offered for benefits. But anyway, I'm just encouraging you to think out of the box on that one. That's the big one that can make such a difference for the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shamas. Louis, how are we doing with folks online? Nobody? Okay, and I don't see anyone else here. Okay, thank you all. We're going to move on to our consent agenda tonight. Board members, if you have anything you'd like to pull or just comment on the consent agenda, give me a glance and let's all chat about that. Oh, Trustee Otmar, you've given me a glance. And will you be pulling or just commenting?
I'll be pulling just, I'd like clarification, so I'll pull.
Okay, sure.
I'd like to pull B.
Okay.
C.
Okay.
F and I, please.
Okay, and would you like to make a motion to approve the others? Or, I'm sorry, was there any other discussion amongst the board's members? No, let me check online too really quickly. Louis, if you could check online, and I don't see anyone in person and nobody online. Okay,
Then I'll move to approve the remaining consent agenda.
okay, so the motion is to approve all but B, C, F, and I.
Correct.
Okay, Elliot, was that finger in the air a second?
Just want to make sure that clear that I is, is off because it's a walk-on agenda item, right? So
Yes, then I have additional questions though about that.
So essentially you have questions for walk-on item A, because I was converted. And Ralph, let me confirm with you, it's I has been fully converted into walk-on item A, is that correct?
Correct. We pulled I off the docket completely. So we have a walk-on. It's in your blue folder for you, and that has been labeled walk-on item A.
Okay, thank you so much.
So that will be discussed separately as walk-on item A whenever.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Can I clarify? It won't be under consent agenda then? It's separate.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor.
I'll just modify if I could, just to basically approve everything except B, C, and F, since I has already been stricken.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right, so motion was made by trustee Otmar, friendly amended by Dr. Hazen. And who seconded it? Nobody.
Seconded yet.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, great. Thank you, trustee Brian Swanson. All right, and we have a second. Okay, roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary,
Aye.
Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
trustee Otmar,
Aye.
trustee Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, passes unanimously. So next, what we're going to talk about, we're going to go back here. We're going to talk about pulled consent item B. Right, Ralph?
Yes, and happy to discuss it. Just why don't you go ahead and ask us what you'd like.
Thank you. Just get this in front of me. So my question is about leave of absence. I'm just wanted to clarify if this is for Catherine Yant, Forest Grove, long-term personal leave. I wanted to clarify if this is going to be a substitute or if this is a posted position.
And I see our director of HR making her way up to the podium. She'll answer in just a moment.
Good evening, Billy Mankey, HR Director. The position will be, the answer is both. It will be posted. And in our bargaining agreement, we have an outline of the various options for posting positions. And so we follow that. And then when a teacher is on a leave, we backfill with a substitute. This position is a long-term leave. It's for a whole year. So that will be a temporary contract. So the temporary contract holds the position for the permanent employee.
Thank you. Are there any other board questions related to this item?
Nope, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Trustee Otmar, would you like to make a motion to approve this?
Yes, I would like to move to approve consent agenda item B.
I'll second. So motion made by trustee Otmar, seconded by Carolyn Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary,
Aye.
Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
trustee Otmar,
Aye.
trustee Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. It passes unanimously. Next up in the agenda is a pulled consent item C, which is a classified assignment order 11. And go ahead, trustee Otmar.
Thank you. So this was clarified to me via email that this was a let's see, lots of sticky notes. So that this was a leave of absence that is now a resignation. And my question to follow that is, I wanted to know about getting exit surveys for the employees that are resigning and what that looks like. And are we offering that to employees as they leave?
We are. I email them the form and they can return it either, by email or they can bring it in. It's not something that's mandatory. It's optional for that person, but most of the time they complete it. So, and oftentimes we already know why the person's leaving. Maybe they're going to school or, whatever they're doing. But we do provide the exit interview. I can give you the form so you want me to email it to you or I've done that in the past.
Yes. And then are these after they have filled out the exit survey, are we able to take a look at the reasons that they're leaving? Is that something that we can look at? Or is that information that we can have access to?
Well, we certainly can take a look at that. Part of it is in their it's personnel records.
Right,
So
that's what I'm wondering
yeah,
about.
I mean, it would be kind of in the realm of public records. So we can summarize general findings, but for specific employee responses, you probably would need to be a little more cautious with that.
Okay. I wonder about if we can remove the names. I guess what I'm getting at is I'd like to know if there are teachers that are resigning, what's the reason?
Sure.
Is it pay related? Are they going to school? Are they dissatisfied in some way?
I
So
think
just
we
to
can
kinda
do
get a
some,
pulse on
some
that.
kind of summary like that. That would keep
Okay.
it general. Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you. That's all I have for that.
And just to clarify, direction from the board to staff on that. Laura, what are you thinking? Are you thinking you want to see like a quarterly report? Are you wanting to see it with classified staff, certificated staff, and the rest of the board can chime in as well? Or is that something that the majority of us want to see, don't want to see? I mean, that's kind of important information, I believe, Ralph, for you to
Sure.
have.
Well, typically, if there's a particular trustee that's asked for information, we usually send it to everybody. We can
Mhm.
certainly send it just to you.
Okay,
however you'd like
and
to have it
trustee
done.
Otmar, how often were you wanting to see like every
No, I mean, something that's a quarterly, just to kind of keep a pulse on what's happening, if there are teachers that are exiting this district, just to kind of keep a pulse on that. of
teachers
why.
and
So
other staff or just teachers?
other staff as well would be
Okay.
great. I mean, just to kind of get an idea of what's happening,
Okay.
if that's feasible.
We can certainly do that via an update for sure.
Okay.
Do that too.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that. We're still on pulled consent C. Any board member having any comments? And Louis, how are we doing? Nobody? And nobody in person. All right, trustee Otmar, if it's okay with you, I'll make a motion on this. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve pulled consent item C on staff's recommendation. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by trustee Otmar. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary,
Aye.
Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
Trustee Otmar,
Aye.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
I
Thank you.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Next up is pulled consent item F, which is out of county or overnight activities. And Laura, this was also one of yours, so please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for being patient with us.
Sure.
So my question here, this is something that I touched on at the last meeting, is the number of students versus the number of adults that are traveling. And I know that previously it had been discussed that we use the district vans for that. I had asked the question if our insurance covers non-employees driving district vans, and it sounds like they do not cover that. Is that correct?
With our vans, so the high school, we have 2 vans and we only allow our employees to drive those vans.
Okay. So the clarification I guess I wanted was, so 17 students, 4 adults, that's 21 people. And I'm assuming then that's 4 cars, since there's only 4 adults that are chaperoning. So I'm just trying to do the math.
Teacher.
Plus a teacher. Okay, and is the teacher driving the van that can accommodate?
Correct.
Okay. I'm wondering if it's possible, can we add district van under auto, is that auto populated there that it? Is that difficult to do or? I just want to make sure that kids are being safely transported. I'm sure that they are, but if it's on the form, you know. Sure,
Oh, yes, please, Director Anderson is making his way to the microphone.
I appreciate it.
Okay, sorry about that. Carly, one of our office assistant, wonderful person, she was able to actually get in touch with Keenan, our insurance provider. And this is what the latest we found out. So we got a response that says, please review the best practices attached. Parents and volunteers can be authorized to drive district vehicles as long as the board approves and you follow the best practices that are highlighted. And what was highlighted in the attachment were these. 1, district screens drivers, i.e. check Department of Motor Vehicle records, proof of liability and insurance coverage, and check for vehicle condition. You know, I guess that would involve us doing a vehicle inspection. And then it says also that the district approved the drivers. So I'm assuming if we did a check on them, their driving record, like a pull notice through DMV, that it would be acceptable. I don't know if that's a practice we want to do, but it's something we can research. Okay. Does that answer the question?
Thank you. Mr. Jordan, did you have something?
No, I think you nailed it. You have to pull notice through DMV, anybody that's going to drive a district vehicle or drive a vehicle with students in it. So the volunteer parent would have to opt into being pull notice through DMV.
Okay,
Covered.
and that could be a discussion for another on the agenda as a separate item entirely. Okay. Yes, please.
Sally Richmond, 3 for 3. All right.
Keep it
I would like to
coming.
comment again, please, on the transportation issue and the forms that are required for us to fill out. I filled out the form in January for our robotics trip that is coming up at the beginning of March. At this time, I do not know how many students are actually going to qualify to attend the event. So I made a best guess. I do not know exactly who's going to be driving. So I made a best guess. These things are all subject to change. And then asking us to make sure that the number of cars matches the number of kids, when the number of kids, we don't even really know what it is becoming unreasonable. My suggestion then, because I don't want to give you a problem without a potential solution, is give us a box to check that says we positively will assure that the students will only be driven by people who have submitted the driver's form. And there's a second thing that's supposed to, and they have been fingerprinted. And I will happily do that. And I will follow up and make sure that every single person has submitted the driver's form and has been fingerprinted. But when I submit these forms so that they can be approved in a timely way, I have no idea. I have no idea how many kids are going. I have no idea how many drivers are going to need. And it's becoming a burden that I shouldn't have to bear to fill these forms out. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, so go ahead, Dr. Hazen.
Just in response to that, I don't know, again, I'm sorry to call you back up, Director Anderson, but is that something, that kind of a modification, something we could do as well in terms of doing the box instead of the fill out? And I don't know if it's something that would be desired of having, these forms do look also like they're paper. Is there any discussion about digitization too that could be done on them?
Yes, thank you.
So I think we can modify just about any form, and I do sympathize with, not knowing and being able to plan that far ahead. I will just put this out there. When I'm approving stuff, I usually, even though I see them come in, I'll put a placeholder on the calendar for it, knowing that the trips are going to change. So having the ability to make that a little bit more flexible is good. But I think, when we're going out of county and it needs to be board approved, I think we do need to put a best guess forward. But I don't know the actual solution, because I think before you approve it, I think you want to see that it's actually approvable. So that does get difficult, but I don't have an immediate solution for that now. But we could definitely put some boxes on there to help move that along.
Okay, and I think that actually might be a discussion for another time on if we want to, change the form and change that approach. Is that correct, Ralph? Or
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think it's going to be, as we were talking about, there's flexibility, but
Mhm.
right now we're proceeding with the last direction in regards to trying to make sure the form is populated with this information. So
Mhm.
it'll be up to the board in regards to what you're expecting in regards to
Yeah.
form and policy.
Yeah, so if we want to do that as a future agenda item, because it actually does kind of garner a discussion and it's a valuable discussion to have. Let's put it on as a future agenda item. And then if this consent item, it feels comfortable for the majority of the board to pass right now, then I would say we should do a motion on it right now if possible.
I have another question. I'm
Sure.
just wondering who other is for the parent. Is that just a placeholder for? I guess the issue I'm having is we're approving something that isn't really complete. And I understand where you're coming from, because how can you know who's going to be there? It's March. I get that. So I like your idea. I think that's a great solution. But when I'm looking at this and there's 3 parents listed and then other, it might as well have 4 others there, because it's sort of, we're approving something that's not really official.
So to Mrs. Richmond's point earlier, when we submit these, we're basing this on timelines that we have to meet. And the staff member responsible for filling out this particular form, we were looking at bus opportunities. Are we going to have to rely on parents plus school vans? There were things that we were trying to make happen. And so I'm placing that word in there, other. I interpret that as, well, there might be a possibility we could get a bus. And we were not able to for this particular excursion. So yes, there are things that we could do to clean it up, but time constraints also are not going to make this as clean as I think we would all like it to be.
Okay. I'm good to move to pass this.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to pass consent F.
Okay, motion to pass pooled consent F made by trustee Otmar, seconded by trustee Brian Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary,
Aye.
Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
trustee Otmar,
Aye.
trustee Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So next up, we are going to discuss walk-on item A, which used to be contract for services with a DJ and now has changed, and I'm going to pull that. So go ahead, Lito, if you would like.
Sure. So we have planned for our winter ball, which is taking place this Saturday some time ago. The DJ we initially wanted to contract with, there's a delay in his fingerprinting. We learned about that about, I would say, 10 working days ago. We were hoping that everything would go forward and we would get the information regarding the fingerprinting, and we waited until Wednesday morning of this week to see if that had come in. Unfortunately, it is still being delayed. So we pivoted and went with the DJ that the middle school has used, and this person's fingerprints have cleared. And luckily he was available. Otherwise the students would have to listen to my playlist. So that's why I'm standing up here right now, because the dance is on Saturday and we need a DJ.
Thank you. It really sounded unavoidable, but we do appreciate the detail and making sure that the fingerprint is there. So thank you so much for that. And it's already on file. So I don't have any questions. If the board has any further questions, please let me know. Go ahead, Brian.
Just 2 things. First of all, I'm sorry I laughed out loud at the notion of your playlist. I'm sure it's awesome.
No sarcasm in that at all, right, Brian?
It's better than mine, I'm sure. Secondly, what is the cost for fingerprinting? I am curious. Do we know?
$50.
$50. Okay. And that's borne by the whoever is providing the service, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So I guess that's fine. I mean, maybe at some point I'd like to talk about how we ding people for something that's our requirement. But for now, I'm fine with it. You guys got to have your DJ, of course. So that's all.
Okay, any members of the public wishing to comment on this item? Java's tricked me. Okay, nobody online and board members. Okay. I'll make a motion to move forward and accept on staff's recommendation, walk on item A, please. If anyone would like to make a motion or a second.
Happy to second. You got your question?
Okay, seconded by trustee Hazen. Thank you so much. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary,
Aye.
Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
Trustee Otmar,
Aye.
Trustee Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for that. Now we're moving on to action discussion. It's about 7:45. I'm about half an hour behind and where I thought we would be at this point in the meeting, which does not mean that we need to hurry or cut our comments short, but it's just letting y'all know, like, we might not finish this regular part of the open session until 10:30 or later. So keeping that in mind. Action discussion item A, which is district update on response to COVID. It's all yours, Ralph.
Madam President. So this is the last update and fittingly so, there's not much to say. We have everything that I reported on last time is still in place. We're still rolling forward. All of the mitigation measures that we have been putting into place are continuing into place. The materials, masks, test kits, those kinds of things are continuing to be supplied and monitored. We're going to need to get creative at some stage of the game down the line as the emergency fund money starts to dry up. And we'll have to decide at some point, do we want to continue purchasing or not purchasing? That's not for now. That's down the ways a bit. So we continue to take a look at those things. Nurse Pally continues to be remarkable in the work that she does. She's being very proactive in regards to letting us know when opportunities arise, whether it's for trainings or those kinds of things. So she's done a really great job with that. As I normally do, the county numbers came in this morning with case rates dropping down to 3 for every 100K. And that was a pretty significant drop from the last time around. Positivity rate has also dropped to 4.4%, which also was a pretty significant drop. And the hospitalization rate is actually down to 16, which was a good because it was getting higher for a while. In any event, everything is knock on wood well and appreciative as always for the staff for the amazing work that they do with students on the front lines, making sure our students are safe and they're healthy, and deeply appreciative of that. And I have nothing more to say at this point.
Thank you. Board members, any comments?
Just a quick one.
Yes.
Or a quick two things maybe. Because I've got it bookmarked here and it just kind of struck me. The bookmark is for 2019 is when these things first started to, when you look at it. So, which is also kind of weird because I thought it was 2020, but anyway, just to think about how long it's been. And today was the first time actually in what I do, you know, in my business, in the live entertainment business, we were really severely impacted by what happened. But it was the first time today that I actually dared to say that we're living in a post-COVID world. It was the first time that I felt like I could actually say that, even though we're still living with it and it impacts what we do. But it was the first time that I kind of dared to say we're kind of post-COVID. Hospitalization is actually at 8, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, not even at 16. So the numbers are really remarkable. And I know we still need to pay attention and be careful. But it's heartening to see where we are now compared to where we were, you know, April of 2020. That's all.
Thank you, trustee Brian Swanson. If any board member has any direction for staff on this, please go ahead. And we do have one person online. So board members first, go ahead, Dr. Hazen.
Not a direction, just a thank you also to the district, to the teachers, to all the parents and the kids that went through this. I mean, it's a transformative thing, but it is I will say, I don't know if I'm willing to say we're in a post-COVID world, but we're in a post-COVID on the action item discussion on the agenda world, which I am very excited about. So thank you all.
Thank you. Clerk McNary, do you have anything? No, trustee Otmar, anything? No? Okay. We have a comment. Oh, Miss Aziz, thank you so much for commenting again. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and board members. I'm commenting again. I'm glad to hear the numbers are very low. So I'm calling to request, there are still, according to my children at the middle school and high school, teachers that have windows wide open when it's very chilly out and fans on. And I believe it's due to, COVID fears. So if that can be reined in, because my kids are cold, and again, I don't think you learn that well when you are shivering and cold, that would be very much appreciated as well. Because I'm glad to hear at least one of the trustees thinks we're approaching a post-COVID world. It's been long and tiring. I'm not even going to go into that. But I think it's time to start thinking about having windows closed, especially when it's so cold out, so the kids can learn. Because if you're shivering and distracted about how cold you are, you're not learning. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Anyone in person have any comments? Ms. Chavez, do you have something?
I just would say I like the freedom to keep my classroom, especially with lots of little snotty noses. I'm in kindergarten, that I will be opting to keep my windows open, and I'm glad that we have the option to do that. We bring layers and things like that. I don't have the fans on when it's windy, but I think that keeping fresh air circulating is always a good idea, whether it's COVID, the cold, flu, RSV, whatever germs and boogies are coming around. So I appreciate the hand sanitizer and things still coming, even if it's not COVID. So thank you.
Kindergarten teacher right there. Very much so. Thank you so much for your comment, Ms. Chavez. Okay, I don't see anyone else online, and I don't see anyone else in person, and I don't see any board members. So with that, we're going to move on to the next item. That concludes the response, COVID district's update response on COVID. So next is adoption of resolution number 1099 designating school safety. This is on page 48 of the packet, if anyone is following along that way. Okay, Dr. Portas, this one is, you want me to speak to it?
I was just gonna say, the cover sheet's pretty explanatory in terms of resolution. I think actually, Madam President, you were the one that suggested this initially, so if
I
you wanna,
was.
if you'd like
Yes.
to speak to it, that'd be great.
Okay, sure. So just zooming out for one quick second. So resolutions, you'll see them come through the board. Resolutions in this format are the way that a board kind of officially communicates to its community. We're policymakers, so we set policy forward. The way that policy comes to life and stays to life and creates a culture is we talk about it. And resolutions are this very organized way of putting something on the agenda and revisiting something that's already most likely in policy, but something that's important that we feel we would like to speak to. So this one is related to school safety. This was drafted by California School Board Association, at least the bulk of it, tweaked by Ralph's office to fit our district. And it really talks a lot about kids being able to be in a safe environment free from violence and harassment, especially life-threatening forms of violence. So there is an aspect of this in the later recitals of it. It talks about gun safety. And there is, Ralph remind me, there is legislation that will educate families about safe gun storage. We are not against guns. We are against gun violence, to be clear. And so that when will families start seeing that notice every year?
That will be coming on the family rights packet that comes out at the beginning of the school year. So be on the lookout for that, and it'll be included now with all the other information that we provide the families at the beginning of the school year.
Okay, excellent. And if anyone, I know it may sound a little strange for me to say, but if anyone listening has a gun at home, please make sure that it's locked up, because the majority of students and individuals who are bringing guns to school are getting them from unlocked scenarios in homes, their own homes, relatives' homes, and friends' homes. So this resolution, we do not need to read every word out loud to pass it. I tried to summarize it, and if we have any discussion or talk about it, or Mr. Roach, you have something to say about it? You're heading out. Oh. All right. Mr. Roach is going on a bio break, I will say. Okay, thank you so much for that, Mr. Roach. And so does any board member have a comment or discussion point on this resolution? Okay, I'm going to come back. So if something pops in your minds, you're going to look online for the public. We've got public here. Nobody is coming forward. And Lewis, thank you so much. Nobody is online. Board members, I'll make a motion to pass this on staff's recommendation. And I'll wait for a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, trustee Otmar. So motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by trustee Otmar. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary,
Aye.
Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
trustee Otmar,
Aye.
trustee Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the adoption of the next resolution that we have in our board packet. So a lot of my same comments kind of filter into that one about this is how we officially communicate to the public and keep policy alive. This is adoption of resolution number 1100 proclaiming February as Black History Month. And trustee Otmar, I'll start with you with board discussion.
So I'm looking at this, and what I would like to do, if it's possible, I'm guessing that this is a resolution that we would like to repeat every year. So I would like to suggest that we remove 2023 and just resolve that we proclaim February as Black History Month ongoing.
And can I ask a clarifying question? So were you envisioning and expecting to kind of have this come back on the agendas through each February and just remove the date? Or were you just thinking we would pass it now and then it wouldn't come back on future agendas?
We would pass it now. It just wouldn't come back on future agendas. So moving forward from here on, February is hereby proclaimed Black History Month at PGUSD.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And I didn't want to cut your comment short. So was that the extent of your comment?
Yep. That's
Okay, thank you so much. Trustee Brian Swanson? Okay. Trustee Hazen?
I see Buck lined up, but I'll still send a comment anyway. I sorry, Mr. Bergman. I am really happy to see this on the agenda and recognizing the importance of how underrepresented African Americans, along with other minorities, but are in our history, literature, et cetera. Not at the school, I'm saying for the country at large. And I would love to get an update from the district of basically on the curriculum at each site for Black History Month. How are we incorporating this? And particularly if there are folks from the sites here, teachers, staff, administrators that would like to speak up on particular kind of poignant points on that too, I'd be welcome to hear them.
Thank you. Clerk McNary?
Thank you. I brought this to the administration because I was surprised we had never recognized Black History Month formally in the district as a board. And like you said, President Carolyn, I think, our job as a board is very high level, and as policymakers, the way we communicate with the community and with the public, what we value is one way is with our resolutions. And I would love to see a way that we could distribute this resolution to the broader Pacific Grove community. I think it's important that we as a board say that this is something that we do recognize. And then I do also think we should revisit it every year. I think we should take the time every February at minimum to recognize Black history and the accomplishments and the joy and the work of Black Americans. I think this could even be the beginning for our board of seeing the value in celebrating this and, looking forward, dedicating some type of cohesive district message around Black history or a theme every year that we work by, or just, I guess, even for a starting point, understanding better what our student learning around Black history looks like. So I'm very much in favor of it, and I hope we'll pass it this evening.
Thank you for your comments. Did I miss a trustee? I don't think I missed one. Brian, you just didn't have anything, right? You just no comment. All right, thank you so much. We've got one individual online. Buck, you were standing here if you would like to speak, and then Miss Aziz, we will get to right after Buck finishes.
Good evening, trustees. Buck Rogeman, the director of the curriculum and special projects. And I think that the line that stands out for me most in the resolution that we have says not only in February, but year long. As I followed up on the board's request to report on the activities taking place in our schools for Black History Month, our school leaders were quick to emphasize that our educators are inclusive of African-American histories, cultures, struggles, and contributions throughout the entire year across all subject areas. And I think that was one of the things that rang the most true in the past couple of days. And I want to thank the site administration in one of the busiest times of year that they have as they're trying to finish up the evaluations for taking the time to drop everything and to get some information to me because they feel it's just as important as you feel it is. And what the message that was loud and clear to me was that it's not Black History Month in our schools, but Black history, as well as all of the important information from represented populations, including gender, sexual orientation, ethnic minorities, world religions, socioeconomic status, and populations with disabilities are incorporated in the instruction that we do and in PGUSD. Being culturally responsive and making an effort to diversify the curriculum is written into the equity action goals at our sites. And I've accumulated, well, I is the wrong term. We have accumulated a list of the resources that are being used to instruct our students. High school teachers individually started to compile a list of some of the topics that are being covered in our schools. So I just wanted to let the board and the community know that it's important to us as well. And I want to express my thanks to the site administration as well as the teachers that got the information to them so I could compile this document that we'll be sharing with you soon. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Rogeman. Ms. Aziz, once you're unmuted, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. I believe this should come forward every February. That's generally what these months are for, as it's symbolic to bring it forward once a year, just like every November is Native American Heritage Month. It's for the board to acknowledge in this case, what the month of February represents, and to bring that up annually so that there is just a recognition every 12 months and something on the agenda or verbally. That's generally, I think, what the intention is of designating these types of things. Also in Pacific Grove, as I'm sure you're aware, just the history of land use in the peninsula and Pacific Grove has been historically exclusionary, settled by Pacific Grove was, a Methodist camp, which was exclusionary, which is why we have the AME Church, or the United States as the AME Church, because African Americans were not welcome in the Methodist Church. And it went on to when properties were sold within Pacific Grove, there were restrictions on the properties stating you may not sell to African Americans, people of Asian descent, Jewish descent, which are illegal now and were made illegal, but those were on a lot of property titles within many of the properties within this school board's district. Which is why you see, I think, the makeup of the city to date, which is, I think, over 75% white. And this wasn't unusual, particularly in areas that had bases like Fort Ord. It was a tool that was used to exclude certain types of people from buying property. So that's my comment, and I think it should come back. If the board chooses, I recommend it come back annually as a reminder. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mrs. East. And I hope you continue commenting through the rest of the meeting on a variety of topics. And now we have someone coming up to the podium.
Mrs. Chavez, kindergarten at Robert Down. I just also want to thank the Social Studies Pilot Committee for choosing Studies Weekly, which is the new curriculum we're using in elementary school at both Robert Down and Forest Grove. And what I really appreciate, obviously I'm only doing deep dives in kindergarten, is that we don't wait. Like Director Rogerman was saying, we don't wait till February to talk. It's very cyclical, and we're talking about important contributions and inventors and citizens and character development throughout the year, so that children, when we get to February, have said, oh, I remember that's the guy who did this, or that's the lady who did this, or that's the astronaut. And so it's a really great forward-thinking curriculum that spirals and doesn't highlight it as some form of tokenism in February and only February, but that we touch on it throughout the year. So it's very, very integrated throughout the year. So thank you for that adoption and getting us that curriculum in our hands.
Thank you so much. I love all this additional information. It's wonderful, and it makes our discussion so valuable. So thank you.
Could I make one more?
Absolutely, sure.
So I just wanted to clarify too, that me saying I would like to remove 2023, I suppose where I'm coming from with that is I want to make sure that this remains. After this board has moved on, that this continues. So I feel like, and I would love for this to come back every single year. I think it's important. I just want to make sure that this is maintained and continues. So however we can do that, if we pass it without a year and then we bring it back next year as the same board. I don't know what the best process is for that, because I am new. So however we can make that happen is what I would like to do.
Thank you, Trustee Otmar. I know you've always been an advocate for any underrepresented group. So I definitely hear where you're coming from. And one thing we could do is add, if it's not already in there, we can add what to the recital that this will come back every year and be on the agenda. Isn't that right, Ralph? We can put an action into the resolution if I remember correctly.
Well, you can. I think typically that's done when you're, well, yeah, you can for sure. I mean,
We
not
can.
necessary is if we'll continue to bring it back. So it's not necessary to put it into the resolution, but you can if you like.
Or say what's the other way that it will come back?
No,
every
we'll
year?
just have it on the calendar and continue.
Add it to the calendar table.
Yeah.
Okay, which you and Clerk McNary would do. If you haven't already, you probably.
Well, we could add it just to the board calendar as well. I mean, it just in regards to the item that we're bringing for later on. But I mean, I imagine that we can discuss this at the calendar time if you want as well. But again, every month, this is what we have been discussing on the heritage calendar. Every month there is a particular heritage that is celebrated among many other things every month. But the board may want to consider, not necessarily tonight, if you're wanting resolutions for each of those months as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So just to summarize, it sounds like there is something in the works to plug something like this in for each month that would be relevant to that topic. And so even if we pass this tonight as is, it's going to come back next February, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing that back up, Trustee Otmar. Any further board comments, please speak now. And Louis, we're good online, I believe. Okay. Billy, did you have something? Okay. I saw you perhaps wave. I'm sorry. I'm very aware of the movements here. Okay, so Clerk McNary, would you like to make a motion on this?
Sure, I'll move to adopt resolution 1100 proclaiming February 2023 as Black History Month in PGUSD.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, motion made by Clerk McNary, seconded by Trustee Hazen. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary,
Aye.
Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
Trustee Otmar,
Aye.
Trustee Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, it's 8:07. I'm curious if we, as a board, would like to take a 10-minute break now or in about 40 minutes. It's up to you. How is your energy level going?
Sean,
Push on?
Sean.
Push on. Okay, I heard that. Okay, pushing on. Okay. Action item D, new job description for a garden coordinator.
Would you like a staff report on that?
Yes,
Okay.
I would.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Director Mankey to come forward so she can present this item.
And while Director Mankey is coming up, board, we were able to read the cover, the staff report in the packet ahead of time. So if we have any questions specific to the job description, we can ask them now, or we can allow Director Mankey to give a presentation and then ask questions. So it's up to you. Members of the public at home, if you have any questions, this is in our packet on on page 53. And I do have a clarifying question if we want to just jump into the discussion. My question is, so it's a job description, but it sounds like it's also a job for a specific site. So it looks like there's two things going on in this item. So can you just clarify
Okay.
that?
Yes. Good evening, Billy Mankey, HR Director. This position is the position of garden coordinator. It's brought forward as a stipended position. In our PGTA bargaining agreement, we have a list of different stipends, and it can be anything from like yearbook advisor to athletic stipends. So this particular one is a garden coordinator. In years past, we have had a garden coordinator at Robert Down Elementary School that has been funded through their school site council. And this year as well, they have approved that through their board, wanting to pay for this position. So we thought it best to formalize it as a district position, give it the, on this item, you'll see a pay scale for the annual stipends, depending on the years of experience in the district doing the position. And then we created the job description to go along with that, so that people that are looking at this, understand what they're applying for. Now, as far as stipend goes, in our bargaining agreement, I say ours, it's the teacher's bargaining agreement. These stipends, some of them are chosen to move forward at a site, and other sites don't have them for various reasons. So this is a similar thing. It's something that would be available to any site that chose to have a garden and advertise for a garden coordinator. But again, it could be a choice as well. So.
Okay, so clarifying question. So the stipend, we're just looking at year 1 and 2 is roughly $4,500. So we have garden plots, for lack of a better description, at both elementaries, the middle, the high school. Would this apply to the community high school?
It could, depending on how they're running their program.
Okay. So it would be available to them if they wanted. Okay. Any other sites?
We have, I was actually just speaking with an elementary teacher at Forest Grove, and they have an area right now. They don't grow anything there because they don't have water to it. But it's something that, I guess if it was something that they were interested in, they could choose to bring it forward.
Okay. Board, please discuss if you wish this item. Let's see, we'll start with Trustee Brian Swanson, please.
Well, what we're really doing here is just approving the job description, right? It's like if we want to have a discussion in the future about why there's a garden coordinator at Robert Down and we don't have that at Forest Grove, which I would like to have that discussion at some point, but that's really a different agenda item. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, the description is fine. I have no issues with that, but you know, somewhere down the road, I would like to have a discussion about why we've got this happening at one of our sites and at the other elementary site, we don't. So
And is that because you see gardening as a form of curriculum or curriculum enhancement and you would like to see
Absolutely.
something equitable?
well said, yes.
Okay, just wanted to help you out on that. Okay. So Billy, tonight, if we approve this job description, then what happens is it gets posted and then interviews would take place for whichever site would like to hire for this position. Is that correct?
Right. And so currently I know that, and as I just explained, that this has been budgeted through school site council at Robert Down.
Mhm.
So there's a budget already there. The job description would cover someone for us to advertise and have someone apply for it.
Okay, and supplies, because I was telling Ralph, anytime I go to the nursery, just as an individual, I spend a couple $100s without even meaning to. So obviously it's more than just the labor, it's all the supplies. And as a district, are we also saying we're going to pay for a certain amount of soil and seeds and all the accompanying items? Yes, Mr. Keller? Yeah, please.
Good evening, Board. Sean Keller, Principal at Robert Down. Trustee Carolyn, we have plenty of supplies, and we actually had a lot of soil donated to our site this year through, I'm forgetting the county program, but they reached out and offered free soil, so we have it waiting to go in. We actually are going to donate one of our beds to Forest Grove. We had one of the grants that I wrote helped build treks, and they're all installed now. And we realized that one of the beds was just too close to that little butterfly sanctuary building. And we weren't going to put it there because it would just be too cramped together. So we are donating that to Forest Grove, and we've got lots of supplies already over the years. I give the garden coordinator a budget, and hasn't been used up in all the years I've been there.
I see.
Yeah, so we got plenty of stuff, and we might have enough stuff to share with other sites if they want to start a program.
Okay, thank you so much. And Clerk McNary, Trustee Otmar, or Trustee Hazen, anybody? Go ahead, Clerk McNary.
I don't have any issues with the specific job description. I think this speaks to our larger issue of Robert Down having a garden, which includes a portion of curriculum that's being fostered now at one site and not at the other site, Forest Grove. So that's where my concerns comes in with this particular item. And I think, you know, I have like mentally been keeping a list of things like this that come up. And it's concerning. I know we had some discussion in closed session about well, I'll stop there, but I think this is a topic that's much broader than a site job description tonight, and that we really need to start having some honest, direct conversations about what is going on between our two elementary sites to get to the bottom of this, because as we continue to approve things for one site and not the other, it's just only adding to the public perception of what inequities may be going on.
Well said. Thank you. Trustee Otmar?
I love this idea. I'm happy to see this. My question is, and maybe you've already said this and it's just not sinking in, but this garden coordinator position, so it would be one position for Robert Down, and then if Forest Grove wanted to participate, is that something that would come out of their site council budget possibly? Is that how that would work out?
Yes,
If
they
they
would.
designated that?
Right.
Okay. So, but it would be their choice if that's something that they wanted to do.
It is their choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
sounds like,
at this point, right?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's materials hopefully that could be donated to help them get started, which would be great. So I agree, this is something that we should discuss, and maybe it's communication between schools so that maybe Forest Grove is not aware that there's some things that could be donated and we could kind of get the ball rolling there. But I'm happy to see this, and I think it's great. I think it's a great form of education and curriculum, and I'm excited this is happening, and I look forward to Forest Grove doing the same thing. That's all.
Thank you, trustee Hazen.
Yeah, just to say, again, like everyone has said, I fully approve of the position description. I do want to just say I really commend the Rubber Down Site Council for both coming up with this and funding it, because I think that's part of the goals of the Site Council is to act as, I don't want to say mini boards, but to help drive this at, board type decisions at the site. So I really want to encourage that and point out that, again, by improving this, we are giving opportunities to all sites. And I would love us to work on ways we can encourage the sites to take advantage of this garden coordinator or come up with other ideas. Maybe it would be something woodworking or things like that that could be hired at the other sites if gardening is not the choice. So we could do the point you raised, trustee McNary, I agree with, make sure that all the sites are being offered similar resources. But again, I do want to encourage the site council activities on this.
Thank you. We've got one individual online. Thank you, Director Minke, for your answers. Go ahead, Ms. Aziz.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. I just wanted to reiterate and support what a board member said, that it's not necessarily it's Forest Grove's choice versus Robert Down. Just look at the socioeconomic makeup of the two schools and the resources available. Having gone through Forest Grove and having a bit of an understanding of the socioeconomics there and how different they are from Robert Down, and the resources that are available in terms of time, energy, and effort, which a lot of these extra things entail. It's not necessarily the same at both schools. And it sounds like you're starting to understand that and have those discussions. And I encourage you to continue to have those meaningful discussions. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you so much for your comment. So I'm looking around. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I have one other question, and I'm sorry, Billy, you sat down, but I think this is towards you. As we're looking at this, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the board decision here relates to how it's being funded too. Is that right? Because it looks like fiscal impact says annual stipend, and then for the source, it says school site council funding or recommend general fund or recommend an alternative source. Is that right? So we have another decision or direction that we need to give?
Well, that's correct. That's how I wrote this item. And I can see now maybe I put too much into one item, but I did that knowing that that we do have one site already funding it. And so I circled that. I actually thought I took from your direction that we were continuing with the route that we're going.
Okay. I just want the board to be aware that I think we could do it a different way if we wanted to. If we wanted to take this financial burden off of site council and put it into the general fund, we could do that if we wanted to do that, right? Okay.
Go ahead.
Just a quick comment on that. I mean, I would be fully supportive of that if we could get the buy-in from all sites to have that. But I think as it was a site council activity, it does make sense to be site council funded at this time until we can figure out ways to expand.
That's such a good point. Both of you guys have a really good point. Yeah. Because otherwise we're effectively giving roughly $5,000 to one site and perhaps not to the other if they don't have the bandwidth or the desire to have this. So yeah, I do like the idea of continuing school site funding for now. It's also a chunk of change. It's up to $25,000-ish that could come from the general fund if everyone signed on, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if it's going to be, well used for curriculum and perhaps grow edible fruits and vegetables, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not a bad thing, but needs more discussion at a later date, I think, for that part. So thank you for your answers yet again.
Okay, thank you.
Very much appreciated. Okay, so nobody online. All right, so would anyone like to make a motion on this one?
I'd be happy to make a motion if that's okay.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the description as written and continue school site council funding for now.
I'll second that. Motion made by trustee Hazen, seconded by Carolyn Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary, Dr. Hazen.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mandy. I was an I.
Okay, cool. Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
trustee Otmar,
Aye.
trustee Brian Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Director Anderson is standing up. Okay. Next item is contract for services with Monterey Environmental Solutions and Services for emergency asbestos abatement at Robertstown Elementary School. I did read the board report on this and it seemed really straightforward, but thank you for coming up here because we might have some questions from other trustees. Anybody? Okay, we don't have any questions. I'm going to go out to public. So hold on, hold tight just 1 second. If anybody has any questions from the public, I'm going to give you just a few seconds to be able to raise your hand digitally, or if anyone is here in person, which doesn't look like anyone is wanting to come up. Okay, this was an incredibly quick item. I'll make a motion to approve on staff's recommendation. And I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Clerk McNary. Roll call vote, please. It was a little too quick of an item for Mandy. I'm sorry, Mandy, are you there?
President Swanson?
Aye.
Okay, Clerk McNary?
Aye.
Dr. Hazen?
Aye.
Trustee Otmar?
Aye.
Trustee Brian Swanson?
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody on that one. Okay, next up is land acknowledgement. This is action item F. And Ralph, I think you had just like a little, a very short update on this. You did some legwork, and did you want to just tell us about that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I tried to include in the cover as well. I got in touch really quickly with Dr. Nunez from the Monterey County Office of Education, who's been doing this work for a while now. He was very pleased to support the school district and provided some background information for us, gave us some specific details, and tried to really help hone in on the Native American and Indigenous people that were here in this area to try to make it more applicable to Pacific Grove, which was included there for you in this item. And I think from the last discussion we had, wanted to try to make something short and sweet that was meaningful, that provided an opportunity for us to take into consideration the respect and reverence for Indigenous people acknowledging this land. And so those two samples were brought for you there. It's entirely obviously up to the board in regards to how you'd like to see this happen. You can pass tonight as action if you like, or you can discuss it and then bring it back if you have further recommendations that you'd like to see. And so really this is the board had talked about this and asked for it. So we tried to provide information for you. One note as well, Dr. Nunez has been speaking with a lot of the tribal leaders for a long time as they've been doing this work, and feels that they would be very pleased to see that this would be coming forward to the board. And we can continue to provide curriculum and support to the school sites to help them take advantage of this opportunity as well. I know that our student rep was going to be speaking with the leadership classes and to get their support for activities as well. So this is just the start, but it's a great start. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Board members, would anyone like to speak first on this? Go ahead, trustee Otmar.
I love this so much. And one of the things that I thought would be meaningful as well, if everybody else is on board with this, is whatever we choose here, possibly just taking a brief 15 to 30 seconds after the statement is made, just for a quiet acknowledgement or reflection, do with that whatever we would like. But I just think it's meaningful in our busy days and our busy times where there's constant stimulation to just take a moment to really sit in silence with that. I think would be meaningful, and I would like to add that if it's possible.
Thank you for that idea. Trustee Brian Swanson?
Well, I think it's better than what we had before. I'm reticent to move forward with it without Ray being able to speak about what his discussions have been with the rest of the student body, though. I'm really, to me, that's the most important part. And like I'd mentioned the last time, it's like, how do we really make this substantial in some way? You know, it's like, rather than having the statement, it's like, how our goal here, again, our duty is to make sure that our young people are learning something, and how do we tie that together? And so I really want to hear from Ray before I vote on it at all.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Elliot.
Yeah, I'll just completely agree with the comments from Trustee Swanson. And I do like the idea of the silence as well. And I do think it's difficult to have an action without having Ray come back to us. And I did reach out to a few parents that some by luck, some due to their profession, and heritage, I should say. And, you know, they were one in particular, I don't want to name names, but if she's here and wants to speak up, it would be great. But did encourage the use of a land acknowledgement, because I realized I came out pretty negative on it. I felt I was more negative than I meant to be. But one of the points she brought up, it needs to move beyond words. And this is the critical part. And also to be more personal, Pacific Grove specific context as well. How it's engaging the high school students through their coursework, which I really appreciated, Superintendent Porras, and sharing specific PG markers and more actionable ways to support local Indigenous tribes. Again, actionable being the key word. And she did say she's happy to support this endeavor if you would want some parental involvement or, in the process as well. Another parent mentioned to me that she works at Miss, and they are in the process right now of working with the Ohlone sisters, I think it was, to update their land acknowledgement. And they have, by design, included the students of Miss in the process. So it's something that from the get-go, they're involved with the crafting of it too. And that's something I think we should target as a board, to make sure our students are not just approving it, but are helping us write it.
Trustee, Clerk McNary.
I'm still in support of a land acknowledgement in guess whatever form we can get to an agreement as the board. And I also see the value, and I think this is just the beginning as a board of saying that this is something that matters and acknowledging the history of our area. But I also think it goes further, like you said, with the education efforts. And maybe that's something we can explore as a board in the future, is what, curriculum related to the history of this area we can include. That's all for now.
Yeah, I think it is important because now, we're talking about it tonight, and we talked about it previous meeting. And I think it's very, very important to say out loud that we're not delaying it for any reason other than to make sure we do this right. And so one of those ways is making sure that we've included the voices that we can, including Ray's, but also including Indigenous people. And so thank you, Ralph, for reaching out to Dr. Nunez and making sure to make that connection and make sure we're not accidentally creating harm by this. So I think we should table this until Ray comes back. Yes, Elliot? Oh, yes, Mr. Rogerman, please.
For the portion for public comment.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I almost missed you.
No, that's fine. I just want to commend the board for, taking this under consideration. I had the pleasure of going to sort of a combination play spoken word performance at Cal State University, Monterey Bay at the world stage that was called the Esalen Remembered. And it was one of the most powerful educational experiences that I've had in regard to, the original peoples that occupied the land. And one of the more powerful points that was made is that we kind of stand in awe of, a few hundred years of history, in what we think of as the story of the United States of America, and what really was brought to the forefront of my consciousness. is 10,000 years of history, that have gone before us with people that occupied this land. So I think it's a very important, awareness for us to have. And so I think it's important for us to look into this. And if a statement at the beginning of the board meetings is the right path to go, great. But as the director of curriculum, I'm reaching out, and I haven't heard back from, the folks that put the play on yet. But if we could do something that's age appropriate and could be equally powerful for our students, I think that, having cultures come and teach our students about their cultures is going to be some really powerful experiences in our school. So that's just the kind of support that I'd like to lend to this effort, and encourage people. If you've never been to a performance of that kind, go, because it will affect you deeply. Thank you.
Thank you. And just kind of witnessing that a discussion that started as an agenda item on the board. I know sometimes we do feel not disconnected from our students, but kind of like, oh, what is this small act going to do? But I do believe it trickles not down, because we're not above anybody, but it does help with the culture overall. So I thank you so much, Mr. Rogeman, for saying that and for being open to this. Ms. Shmas.
Beth Shamas. Yeah, I'm new to land acknowledgement. I never heard of it before. You brought it up last meeting. I totally support curriculum development in this area. I think that is our job as educators. And the better we do at it, the more, like Trustee Swanson mentioned last time, the Chinese in our area. And so just our local connection to the history of the United States is important. And I support that. I really did not approve of the land acknowledgement statement written by Dr. Nunes, just because I felt there was some divisive wording in there that I would never want the board to speak of. So I think that would not be a good way to go. And these particular ones that Dr. Porras put in here as possible wording that you would use, I mean, I don't find them to be objectionable. I'm not sure that they will translate into maybe what you want it to translate into, but I don't think it does any harm. But I really did not like some of the wording in that other one, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shamas. If we have anyone online, please do raise your hand. We would love to hear from you. Staff members or members of the public, anybody. Okay. All right, coming back to the board. It sounds like we are in agreement to wait for Ray, at least the majority of us. So Ralph, mind putting this on the next agenda? Okay, thank you so much. No action taken on this item. Next up is action item G, which is our board calendar / future meetings. Ralph, do you have anything?
No, Madam President, nothing has been changed, so no action is required unless the board would like to take action at this time.
Okay, I'm going to start with Clerk McNary. Please go ahead.
I have one comment. I know we had discussed around the May 11th special board meeting that we had calendared, found my notes, and that was a date that Dr. Porras and I penciled in as a possible date to do our board self-evaluation, which is one of our job duties. So
you were thinking board self-evaluation on
May 11th was just a placeholder that we had put in.
Okay.
Because I think we have two meetings in May, but that was a Thursday off. So.
Okay, got it. Got it. Any other points of discussion on this item? I don't see anybody online either.
Madam President, actually,
Yes?
you may want to discuss at this point in time, although it may be premature.
Mhm.
You'd asked for a couple of dates for potential board work with DWK.
Yeah.
And they are prepared to do the work. We would need to get a contract for services with them onto the next agenda if we choose to go that way. And then I did propose some available dates to you. We can talk about those at this point if you want to try to get in the calendar. It's really very fresh, so I don't know if you.
I was thinking we were going to talk about that during info D during the special board meeting planning
That's
item.
fine. I just was thinking this was the calendar time, so I don't know if you
It
wanted
could
to.
kind
but
of go either way.
Either way. it's
Okay,
Fine.
I
Sure.
see.
Waiting is just fine too. It's not a problem.
Let's wait, if
Okay.
you don't mind. Thank you so much. Okay, so seeing no further board comments on the future calendar and nobody online, I'm going to move on to the next item because we don't have any direction to give on that either. Okay, now we're to the information discussion part of our meeting. It is 8:38. I would like to take a 5 to 7, maybe 10-minute break. Is 10 minutes okay or too long? Board, what do you think? I see yawns. Oh dear. Okay. 5 minutes? 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. We will be back at
Was that you?
8:43. Everyone can do their bio breaks and get a snack. On information discussion item A, which is school accountability report cards, Director Rogeman, take it away.
Yes, we brought this item for board approval at the last meeting, and the board requested that this be put back on as an information item so that the trustees could have a chance to go over the content. And if there are any questions from the trustees or from the public, I am happy to address them at this time.
Thank you so much, Director Rogeman. It's hard for me not to call you Director Wogeman like my daughter does. So
You can call me whatever you want.
I have to, I pause every time I about to say your name.
I love it.
Okay, so Trustee Brian Swanson, any questions or comments on this?
No, only because I think I mentioned last time too, it's like as I understand it, this is something that Buck is required to put together for the state so that people can look at our community, at our schools and see what's happening. But all of these items come up throughout the year and we review them more in depth as they do. Some of it's even a little old compared to what we'll be seeing when it comes up as part of our regular schedule. So I don't need to take a deep dive into any of it.
Trustee Brian, and if I may, I would like to recognize the effort of the site administration. I'm not typing the narratives on all these, they are. And so it's their work that I gather and then package and send on up to the state.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Brian. Trustee Hazen.
You answered my questions last time, Director Rogeman, so thank you.
Okay. Clerk McNary, any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I think when we're talking about data points, looking at the two elementary schools, the differences in the math and ELA scores are, I would say, significant. Robert Down percentage of kids is at 73% for math, Forest Grove 49. ELA 83% met or exceeding standard, Forest Grove 62. So I think if nothing else, that's a data point we can use to figure out how to support, I guess, all of our students better. Just wanted to bring that to our attention.
Trustee McNary, that's also data that we use in the local control accountability plan, which drives the allocation of the resources for our school. So our intervention efforts will be more intensive at Forest Grove than they would be at Robert Down. Okay.
Trustee Otmar.
Thank you for bringing that up, Clerk McNary, because that was something I noticed as well. So I'm glad that was brought up. And thank you, Director Rogeman, for walking me through the myriad of questions that I had and taking the time to do that. And I don't have any additional questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Trustee Otmar. Trustee Hazen. You already asked you. Great. Okay. I had one question and it was just a clarifying I know that some of the pages had said there were misassignments of teachers and then you sent a really clarifying email. And so I just wanted to make sure, do we not have any misassigned teachers or do we have, are we clear on that for the?
Yes, that we are clear on that none of our teachers are misassigned and all of them have the proper credentialing for the assignments that they have.
Okay.
And when there needs to be one kind of gray areas are teachers at community high school that are teaching multiple subjects on a single subject credential. There is a local county issued credential specifically for a community high school teacher that allows them to teach additional subjects.
And we have that in place.
We do.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to go out to the public and see if there's any questions in online world. Thank you, Louis. Anyone in person? Beth? Okay, great. Mr. Moss, please.
Just a comment on the difference between Robert Down and Forest Grove. You know, you want to say the intervention is on the student, but I want to remind you that it's the parents, and that if we get our adult school maybe to be more engaged with those particular parents of kids that are having trouble, you might see a better result. Because in my experience working with some of these disadvantaged kids, you know, it was the parents who really didn't have the skills to work with their kids. There weren't books at home, whatever it was. So if there's more of an outreach toward the parents, you might see, you know, those scores come up.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Director Rogeman, were you addressing a board question?
Well, just the comment that Ms. Shamas made, am I able to kind of add some perspective? If not, I'll go sit down.
I feel I'm in a really awkward spot right now.
Then I don't want to put you in that. I can follow up with a message to trustees after the meeting. Okay.
Oh, is it something you would, please come back, please address.
I had the pleasure of serving Forest Grove for 7 years, and our parent population has that same level of care for their children as anybody does for, you know, a child, and the level that they're devoted to their children with the you know, like work schedules that they're balancing as well, you know, met or exceeded anything that I experienced in my own life working with my own daughter. And I think that that when you're looking at this situation and the difference between the students or the student achievement levels at Forest Grove and Robert Down, I think there are many different facets that come to play. You know, I think that the demographic makeup of the two sites comes into play. And when one site is loaded more heavily with a student with disabilities population, then the testing and trying to access, you know, the state testing is going to be much more challenging for a student with a learning disability than it will for, you know, the general education student. So what we look at with our student growth at Forest Grove is trying to measure the amount of growth that the students make, that the individual students make. And some of them are going to be able to achieve that at or above standard level. Some of them are going to wind up falling short, but we want to make sure is that we keep making that incremental growth on a student by student basis so that over time they wind up closing that gap. So I appreciate the comments and the idea of parent support is looking at what we can do to try to help provide a time and a space for students to still have access to the school. So it might be an after school programs, before school programs. If parent support or parent presence isn't available at home right after school because of parents that are working multiple jobs into the night. I guess what I want to be really careful about doing is placing blame anywhere really, because this isn't about blame. It's going to be more about trying to address the needs of the student as they come to us. So thank you for that comment, though. It opens up a good conversation.
Thank you, Director Rogeman. Thank you. And I don't see anyone online wanting to make a comment on this in public or any follow-ups from trustees. Brian, go ahead, please.
I just, I really appreciate what you said, Buck, because it's like when we talk about these things, and my daughters were Forest Grove kids, and they had the luxury of having a stay-at-home mom, and I had one job, and I saw some of their schoolmates whose, you know, maybe that was a single parent, maybe it was two parents, and they had two jobs each sometimes. And it becomes so complicated what we're dealing with, and all these different things that we're juggling and trying to figure out, how do we take care of these students, you know? And one of the things Elliot and I have talked about a little bit, and we all have talked about it, is like, how do we really make our schools part of the community from really like the get-go? It's like, how do we do this? And I don't know, because it's so complicated, and we talk about it every other week as to how we do it. But it's, you know, it's making resources available. But sometimes, again, it's like, if you're a single parent, you've got two jobs, maybe you have three, even if those things are there for you, you can't get there. So again, I don't know exactly what the answers are, because they're so complicated. I'm glad that we're continuing to talk about it, but there's no quick fix. I'm just glad that you brought that up, because again, my kids were lucky. And some kids, you know, the hurdles that they're facing are just so gigantic that trying to figure out how to get to them it feels almost impossible. But again, we just have to keep talking about it and supporting people. And, you know, again, the issues, again, it might not be, you know, it's like, maybe they do have two parents at home and that luxury, but maybe their internet access sucks. You know, it's like all these different things that you may not think about initially are struggles that our students are facing. So I'm glad you brought that up, and we just need to keep talking about it.
Thank you. And this was an information item, so we're not taking a vote on it. But we did get information and discuss it. No, definitely not. If you'd like to say something, please do.
I just want to, sorry, Erica Chavez, Robert Down, but I'm also a proud member of the cultural proficiency team for our district. And I think this speaks to the huge work that we're all trying to do at all of the sites, and really, really focus on the language that we're using when we're talking about the diverse population that we serve, and that whether or not they fit into what the expectation of what we have been working with in our community up to this day, because I also went to Forest Grove, but that are we looking at these differences as challenges, or are we looking at these communities as assets and bringing them to the table and engaging with the community and seeing what their needs are? Because it might not be what we assume they are. And so how are we engaging families and giving them opportunities? And how are we, as the educators in the room, making sure that we have equitable grading practices and late work acceptance policies and universal design learning, so that these children have multiple ways to show, because they might not be the fastest readers or the first readers, but they might still be able to explain it verbally or in a project or in a dance or whatever. So I really just value the work that we're doing with the cultural proficiency team, because I think that as that rolls out and it trickles out in the ripple throughout the district, I really think that all the boats will rise with the tide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chavez. Chavez, excuse me. Okay, we're going to move on to information item B, which is review of budget development calendar for 23-24. Mr. Jorn, would you like to give us a quick synopsis?
Yeah, sure. I'm just open for any questions. The budget calendar shown from January through the end of the fiscal is included in your packet. Of course, we've covered a couple of these already, and it pretty much lays out the budget development process within the district and at the state level, following the governor's budget revise in May, and then finalizing with the adoption of our budget. So I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you. And Trustee Hazen, do you have any questions on the calendar, budget calendar? I should
On the
say.
next one, but not this one. Thank you.
Okay, great. Clerk McNary.
No questions. Thank you.
Trustee Otmar.
I have no questions. Thanks.
Okay, Trustee Brian Swanson.
No question.
Okay, I don't have anything to say about it either, so let's check this one off. Okay. So moving on to item moving on to item C. No, I'm just joking. Okay, moving on to item C, review of the governor's budget proposal for 23-24, which may have some things that are a little more juicy for us to hear for our district. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. I did include a pretty extensive backup to the cover page, which was the CASBO update. And I was involved in the school services update. And then again today, finally, with the capital advisors update that was held at the Monterey County Office of Education. There's a lot going on in the governor's budget proposal this year. There's already a trailer bill that's followed. Short of going through the budget calendar that we have, it's similarly follows the governor's budget and the legislature's budget. Some of the key things to highlight, there was some discussion tonight about COLA, cost of living adjustment, statutory COLA, and right now it's projected at 8.13%. That's great for locally control funded formula districts, not so good for basic aid school districts because it just makes the bucket larger. It doesn't help us fill the bucket with more money. No more help from the feds, limited, if not no more one-time federal funding. There are some ongoing programs I'll mention in a minute here that will stay, that will move forward with funding. One of the biggest takeaways that we've noticed, and our counterparts in Sacramento are trying to work with the legislature on more or less defining and revising. But there was a massive pull of $1.2 billion from the Music Arts Discretionary Block Grant. And the reason for that essentially was the Prop 98 guarantee issue and the governor's need to fund the COLA. So the reduction, the proposed reduction to the Music Arts Discretionary Block Grant is essentially to fund the 8.13 COLA. More to come on that, but I will mention on our end how it affects us. So this district did receive a relatively large, sizable grant. That expenditure plan was brought forward to the board. We had planned to bring a second expenditure plan forward to the board because there were some unallocated funds in the initial plan. The way that the money's drawn down is it comes in at P2, so that's usually around April. So last April, we received a very small amount. The first draw was around 300,000. This April, as you saw in my budget that I brought forward a couple of months ago, a more sizable amount of revenue was set to be released to us. After the discussion today, what we found out was CDE, California Department of Ed, does plan to release that secondary apportionment. However, and for us, by the way, all of that money won't be spent in this fiscal year. It was going to be received as revenue this year, and then we're going to budget for it in the out. The concern that we have right now is the clawback of funds. And that may be the case. So we may receive that revenue. In fact, we are more likely to receive that revenue in April. But the question is, will it be clawed back by the legislature? And the answer to that right now is we don't know. So we're going to have to be careful how we spend those dollars. And within this fiscal year, as I mentioned, not a lot of expenditures associated. Most of them are pushed in the out year. So we're going to have to monitor that closely, and I'll bring that information back to the board as it progresses. Proposition 98, not to be confused with the Music Arts Discretionary Block Grant, which is one-time dollars. 941 million in Prop 28 ongoing funding. Now that's good news. There are restrictions to that as well. 80% of that funding has to be spent on ongoing staff, 20% everything else. And the one minor item in the language that tends to make folks like myself, other CBOs cringe is they're not allowing supplanting. So if we had hired people to provide more music and arts within our school district with the one-time funds, and we plan to shore it up with the ongoing Prop 28 dollars, it is not allowed. That's considered supplanting. Again, there's been a trailer bill released, more to come on that. 3.5 million to Narcan for middle school and high school. We had kind of an extensive conversation at Capital Advisors today about that and the supply that's available. 250 million to literacy coaches on top of the initial investment. So that's promising. Let's see here. No changes to our extended learning opportunities program. No changes to universal meals, learning recovery loss block grant, no changes there. Literacy initiatives, no changes. Educator workforce, no changes. Those are good things. They're just going to keep those programs, keep those programs funded. See, I talked about Prop 28. Here's another big one. So the governor is now proposing a delay of 550 million to preschool TK full day kindergarten. So essentially they're planning to kick the can down the road another year. Well, the problem is that we still have implementation that needs to take place prior to the funding. Large discussion will soon to be held on that issue with the legislature and with our counterparts up in Sacramento. That tends to also coincide with the limited amount of money in the school facilities program. So those two programs were tied together to help districts that have facility related issues for the expansion of universal pre-K. Now that money is essentially not available to us. So we still have to plan for it. We are in a declining enrollment district as many districts are in the state of California. So for us, it may not be as complicated as other districts, but there are definitely some issues with not having access to those dollars until the out year. And that's also an if. Base rate for special education, there was no proposal to increase the base rate. There was no cuts, of course, so that's good. There's a lot of limitations they're putting on the SELPA now. I find this is to be a good thing. One of the limitations is that the SELPA can no longer retain funding before reallocation to LEAs. So that's very important. They're not like SELPAs are not allowed to hold on to funding. It needs to be allocated quickly. Increase to SELPA fiscal transparency. So SELPA budgets in the past have not been posted online. The SELPAs now have to post their budgets, make them publicly accessible. And then there's a moratorium on single district SELPAs. So that's another change. Here's the big one. Employer pensions, STRS and PERS. As of last year and up until first interim this year, we were anticipating both retirement CalSTRS and PERS to be relatively flat. In fact, that's where we projected in our multi-year projections. STRS is still proposed to be flat for 1 year with a potential increase in the 24-25. PERS, however, which is 25.7, is now projected in the 23-24 year to go up to 27%. And in 24-25, 28.1%. Those are massive increases to the retirement obligation. I can tell you this, there's also a discussion on the statutory side to potentially change the statute to include the language that retirement programs should be considered as a compensatory item. Right now, it's not considered a district compensation to employees. We'll see how that plays itself out. It's not in statute right now, but that was something that capital advisors advised us of today. That's a big hit to district budgets. Every year there's an increase and it's not considered in the compensation package. I mean, we're looking at a 2 to 3% increase in STRS, again, flat on PERS for now, for next year. And then finally, as I mentioned, school facilities, which kind of dovetailed into UPK and TK. There's still $2 billion in one-time general fund obligation for school facility program. And fortunately, there are two bonds that are being flown, SB 28, which is Glazer, and AB 247, Merits Tucci, probably pronounced that incorrectly. Those are more likely than they're not going to end up on a ballot. I'm a board member for CASH, the Coalition for Adequate School Housing. It's kind of one of the other hats that I wear. So we're closely monitoring those two bills, seeing how they move through the legislature. But as it stands right now with school facilities, even the $2 billion doesn't take care of the unfunded approvals list that the state of California has right now, on top of the fact it does not consider TK, UPK upgrades that are required. So the governor has kind of backed off of school facility funding. And I think that what may happen is that some of the entities might bring it back to the voters like we did a few years back in Prop 51. The May revision will be potentially impacted by the delay of tax receipts. So with the push out of tax returns, there's a possible delay to the May revision, more to come on that. A number of budget workshops will take place between May and June. I attend all of them, and I'll continue to update the board as I receive new information. So With that, I will open it up for questions.
Thank you. Clerk McNary?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Can you go over the numbers on STRS and PERS again? I think I flip-flopped maybe some of your math.
Yeah, so stirs 19.1%, that's the current rate. Maintains flat for 23-24, and there is a discussion of an increase. They didn't give us the projected increase for 24-25. PERS is currently 25.7, with a projected 23-24 increase up to 27%. And a confirmed 24-25 increase to 28.1%.
Josh, do you mind just giving a very basic example of how the district is on the hook for the STRS and PERS percentages? So, like if we spend $100 paying a teacher or an employee, what does that look like?
Right, so it is 20 right now, 25.7% of the income of the annual income, going up to 28%. So it's relatively sizable.
And so
that's PERS. That was the question. It's 19.1% for STRS.
So for every $100 that we're giving an individual in a salary, we are also obligated to give 19.1% of that, so $19.10 to the retirement fund at the state. So every dollar that we spend has this.
Correct.
I used to just average, it would be like a quarter, 25 cents, but now I will have to average it as 30 cents for, unfortunately. Okay, got it. Thank you.
PERS, correct.
Yeah, just in case anyone, that's how, I feel like John Paff, even though he's not here, he can hear this because he was always so upset and worried about that. Anyways, okay, thank you. Trustee Otmar.
That's what I was gonna clarify is the STRS and PERS, because that seems pretty big. So thank you for simplifying that a little bit. It's a lot of information to take in. Thank you.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Well, this is, and I know it was the same thing that kind of upset John Paff's stomach. It makes me feel queasy. And one of the things I end up, I was so looking forward to that flat period with STRS and PERS where it's like finally, because watching over the years as those numbers just climbed, and it was just, to me, it was horrific having to look at it. And I thought we were finally going to get a break, and it doesn't sound like we will. Now, this isn't finalized, so I'm sure there's some real severe pushback on this too. And when does it get finalized?
The May revise will
in May. Okay, yeah. And what are you hearing from your friends out there as far as the pushback on it? It seems absurd.
There's quite a bit of pushback, especially because, the legislature and the governor have never figured in the increased cost of retirement into the Prop 98 guarantee or general fund dollar commitment. So their belief tends to be, and again, our district being basic aid community funded is kind of outside of the norm in that when they fund a COLA, they believe that they fund a percentage of the increase to STRS and PERS within the COLA, but that leaves districts like this and others in our county and throughout the state left to fund those unfunded mandates.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hazen.
Okay, I've got a few, sorry. I wanted to ask, since we're on the PERS topic in particular, could you give now or via email down the road, the approximate cost to the district of this PERS increases? Like, I know you, President Swanson, you were talking specifically on the dollar, but I'm thinking more just if there's a rough number, because that's a budget cut essentially to our numbers. Yeah.
Right. So STRS rates right now, just a little over 2 million for STRS. That's at current rate. And just a little over $1 million on the PERS side. So I'll run a calculation once we get closer.
3% would be
right.
about
3%. Yeah. 1.3 on one side. And the STRS stays at 2,092,000.
Okay. And it does sound like, there's the COLA sounds great for the LCFF funded districts, but Obviously basic aid, no change there. So overall, would you say it sounded like the CA budget is not looking as good as it has in the past, but what would you say overall? Thumbs up, thumbs down, shake your thumb in the middle.
Well, to see the categorical, there's a lot of categorically funded restricted dollars that are still being funded, and some of them have a COLA attached. So I'd say that's a positive, right? As a basic aid district, we tap into a lot of those categoricals. We've brought those expenditure plans forward, and they are restricted dollars. So that's good. About a third of the categoricals that are moving forward and still will remain funded. A third are receiving a COLA attached, cost of inflation. The remaining 2/3 are not, but at least that money is still readily available to us. On the LCFF side, I mean, this is a really big year for LCFF funded districts because, you know, there's an additional COLA, there's increase to base, increase to supplemental and concentration. There's all sorts of other, if you want to call them adders into the LCFF formula. As a basic aid district, we do get state dollars, right? But it's flat. We get a, it's called a minimum guarantee. So it's just over 2.5 million, and the rest is property tax revenue. So there's really no change to our base at all with any of this. The positive takeaway I like to look for the silver lining is, again, those categorically funded programs will continue to move forward. As I mentioned, no change to like universal meals, the way the state's funding that, because the feds dropped the funding and then the state kind of picked it up. So that's big and that's helpful for us. But yeah, and a lot of the no changes, as I mentioned earlier, ELOP, your learning loss recovery, those are all that we tie into a lot of them. It's very helpful for our school district, and especially coming out of COVID, there's a lot more one-time dollars. But again, I keep using the term one-time, and you know, we all understand that one-time means it may be renewed,
right?
But you can't count on it,
yeah,
right? So yeah, all in all, I'd say it's a relatively good budget for LCFF districts, and this is the norm for basic aid, you know, community funded school districts. We've been having this discussion and fighting it with the legislature and the governor's office for a very long time. We're just a small percentage of the state. So,
and just another, you brought up that the effects of the kind of the either both federal and I assume state as well, COVID emergency measures. I mean, that's another negative. I know it's not discussed in here, but yeah, just high level thoughts on that. No requests on details, but
yeah. So like ESSER 3, for example, the only good part about ESSER $3 is it got pushed to 20. You have to legally encumber by 24, but you don't have to spend the dollars until 26. So they pushed out the timeline by 2 years, which is helpful. But there's nothing on the horizon right now.
And then the only other question I was going to ask too is if you saw any opportunities in the current budget and for some of the capital improvement or some of the big infrastructure projects. Didn't sound great what you were saying with TK, but some of the needs that, you know, we've been hearing a bit about tonight with the cold classrooms, for example, we're great to explore.
Yeah, not much within the budget, but the board did make the recommendation when we come back with second interim to take general fund dollars and kind of shore up Fund 40, which is capital reserve fund, and Fund 14 deferred maintenance. So that will help us, right? So we'll work on a budget revision. You'll see it at second interim to shore up those, move general fund dollars into those funds to shore up some dollars for projects. But I'm actually pretty hopeful on the state general fund dollars associated from the school facilities program. The 2 new bills that are pushing through. The last time, essentially, my group cashed it up to the governor and put a proposition on the ballot. We won. That happened actually under Newsom and Brown. So, you know, there's a big push for school facilities, and I see that it may take us a couple more years, but I see that moving forward.
So you're saying contact your representative if you care about that.
Please do.
Thank you, Mr. Jorn. And we could, as a board, generate a resolution or a letter and even do a joint letter between ourselves and other districts. And I'm sure staff could write it for us and we could review it, of course, and sign it and go about that. If that's something that's important, consider that. And actually, could we give direction on that right now? That's kind of off topic, but
would I think you certainly can, or you can wait till future agenda. I'm not sure. We'd have to see what our partners districts would want to do in that. So it would be something that would be immediately resolvable.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so as soon as we get to a point with cash to promote a bill, we'll always have a form board resolution that we'll bring to our board and to the county office and so forth throughout the state
Okay.
in support. So I'll have that readily
Please
available.
do, and know that we're open to advocating for a variety of topics, even if it's not that highly organized. Okay.
Madam President, if I may, just,
Go ahead.
I was asked about this, and so I just wanted to remind the board. In the back of the budget book that is available also online, the very last page shows district overview.
Mhm.
And on that district overview is a section that looks at the PERS and STRS costs as they've been for like the last 8-9 years. So you can kind of see sort of where the trends have been sitting ever since they started this hyperinflation of that percentage. So it's just historically that's available for you there to take a look at as well.
Mm.
Someone asked if it was available. That's where it's at.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Jorn. We're gonna move on. Oh, wait, let me just look online. Nobody. Okay. We're gonna move on to special board meeting planning, which should just be a quick kind of calendar vendor type question that Ralph has for us.
Was that the invitation?
Yeah.
I thought, okay. It was
You
very
could-
subtle this
You
time.
can tell. Okay, yeah. That's-
So yes, I did speak at the request of the board. I did speak with a vendor, Dennis Wolver and Kelly law firm. They do have an interest in participating based on the description that I gave them, that I was asked to present to them. So William Tunick is available and willing to come and do that. His recommendation is a 3-hour presentation. That's what they normally do. And so if we confirm that that's what we would like to go, if the board provides me direction, they will craft a contract. It's pretty boilerplate to bring to the board for the first March meeting. And then at that point, he gave availability and said he could either do a Friday evening or a Saturday. And at this stage of the game, let me just drop my March calendar so I can remember and give you this right. His best available dates are March 3rd and 4th. Those are the preferred. And so we do have the park party 2 on the 4th, but again, just depending on how you want to work that. So he's available either one of those 2. And then the next availables are 17 and 18 of March.
And what's the price?
He is working on the price as we speak, so I can get that to you online, but he didn't have it available yet because he needed to go back to his
Oh.
sheet to calculate it out, but he
boy.
couldn't give it to me on the phone call today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Board, how do you feel about March 4th? It's a
I-
Saturday.
I will not be in town
Hmm.
for that weekend. We
Yeah.
are college shopping now, so.
Okay, and not really zoomable either because you'll be occupied.
Not
Okay.
really, no, we'll be somewhere in the northeast, but yeah.
I was gonna strongly advocate if I could for a Friday, I would even be willing to take some time off work potentially, and if we can move it to the afternoon and not the evening.
A Friday, okay,
Yep.
so either the 3rd or the 17th. Let's shop that around. Laura, how do you feel?
The 3rd would work for me. I prefer not the 17th if possible.
Okay,
And yeah, so
like the 3rd at noon or something, or 1 o'clock type of thing?
it would have to be late afternoon for me.
I would agree with that.
Okay. 2 o'clock, 2 to 5,
We can do it after 3, that would be best.
3 to
but if it's
6?
Gotta be 2, then I can leave work early. I just have to arrange it.
3:30 to 6:30, and then we probably don't, do we have to stop for a meal in between? Do we want to have some sort of break? Is it 3:30 to 7?
I would
Ellie?
push earlier. I'm gonna have to leave probably that night for a trip, so if we could do it the 3 to 6
3 to
or,
6. I'm cool with
yeah,
3 to 6.
I would say let's try to do
3 to
that.
6,
That with
Eat
you
on
be
the
in town
dais.
then as well.
eat on the dais, run
should be-
quickly
yeah,
to the restroom and come back. Okay,
Are you gonna be gone, Brian, though, on the 3rd?
and yeah, that weekend, I'm
You'll be gone.
probably, I'm not even sure, given what's going on right now, if I'll be at the board meeting on the 2nd, I might have
Okay.
to leave that night, but it might be a red eye. I'm not sure yet. I haven't done the flights.
Sorry, I misinterpreted.
okay. Can all of us make it on Friday, the 17th, which is also St. Patrick's Day? Randomly.
I'm available for the 17th.
Okay, you are.
I don't think I'm gonna be available that evening. I can try to move some things around, but probably not.
Okay.
Can we check back or do you want to do this via email? And then
Yeah, we can do it via email, I guess.
Yeah, it's organizational and we're not making any decisions. We're just setting a date. We can just.
Yeah, legally we can, but it's like timing wise to give William a date and.
Yeah,
and-
I would like to try to get back to him as soon as I can. He understood that we were having a meeting tonight that I probably wouldn't be able to get back to him for a couple of days. So, I mean,
Okay.
I think that we could get till Monday. He's penciled them in, so.
Okay. Okay, so, well, we could take 90 seconds right now, and is the 18th, Saturday, the 18th available for everybody, or? That was the one date we didn't really talk about. So maybe that's the sweet spot, or did you not want a Saturday?
I need to check my work schedule and I don't have it right here, so
Oh,
it would
gotcha.
be best. I'm
Understood. Okay, we don't have all the information we need right now. Okay. Thank you. So we will send out an email and kind of work that out calendar wise.
And I can check with him on the following, so the 24th and 25th. As he said that past that if possible, he just needs to know, but those were the first two availables, so. I can ask him for the 24th
Okay.
if that's something that works for everyone, I can ask him that as well.
And as a board, I mean, we really want to do everything we can to have all 5 of us here. So the 3rd and the 4th are out for sure. Okay. All right. Ralph, you'll follow up with an email to the board, or do you want me to do that?
You can send it out. Once you send it out, that's fine.
Okay.
That'll be great. And
I
then
will send
if
it out.
you want to send responses just to me, that's great too. And then so as I mentioned, just structurally, 3rd and 4th is out. So it'd be the 17th or 18th or the 24th, 25th. And I will check on the 24th and 25th with him, but I'll wait till we hear back for polling.
Okay.
And then I'll try to get a final cost for him. Just, I'm gonna guess it's gonna run the same as runs for everybody else. So probably in that same $3,500, $4,000 range.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So there will be a follow-up to that, but no action taken. I will send out an email to you guys and you can let me know on your dates. So next item is board communication protocols, which is kind of a new-ish item. I don't know if we've ever done something like this before, but it's essentially supposed to act as like a very miniature study session. So we are just talking tonight about board communication protocols, and that can encompass really a wide variety of things. It's open-ended, so we can discuss, for example, talking about when a member of the public emails a trustee. How should you respond? How do we, and it's not how should you respond, it's how as a board we want to kind of agree and align in our responses. So we did include a couple of cutouts from the governance handbook in the packet to kind of foster discussion. But I have a couple of points that I'm just gonna say out loud, and then we can go around and kind of discuss further on them. So, and then after this, our last item is just future agenda items. So
And then we're
It's-
going back into closed session, correct?
9:28, yes, and then we need to go back in closed session and get the updates from staff on those items that I mentioned at the top of the meeting. So okay, so for example, since I'm president this year, I get a lot of emails that the rest of the board doesn't tend to get. I think a lot of times members of public just think I'm going to message the president and the superintendent. And I think the more all of us see the emails, the better. And there's no real reason unless, there's some extreme confidentiality circumstance or something. But other than that, we should really all see, because then we kind of are all on the same page. The previous kind of protocol, it's nowhere in writing. It was just kind of something that was said out loud, was that the board president would respond as thoroughly as possible to the individual writing in. And then the other trustees would, if they chose, acknowledge that they received the email in kind of a thank you form, like thank you for your email related to whatever facilities, blah, blah, blah. And just send that out. We can continue that or not. I mean, everyone retains their freedom of speech and can respond however they wish to individuals who are writing in. It is beneficial if we, I don't want to say have talking points, because we're not trying to can our responses to people, but it is beneficial if we kind of want to talk about and agree that certain items, you know, because trustees are not here day to day at the schools, right? We're not operating the schools day to day. We don't know all of the intricacies of an issue that's coming at us. It's really great to get talking points from Ralph or one of the cabinet members so that we actually are giving accurate information back out. So these are the types of things which it sounds kind of silly maybe that we're talking about them, but they come up every single day as a trustee. And I'm sure the rest of, we want to do a really good job for the public. We want to foster communication. And so these are some of the things, even down to like, do we want to have pronouns in our signatures? There's so many intricacies that we can do. So I was hoping we could spend maybe like 20 minutes talking about this, which is really only like 4 minutes per trustee. And I've already taken my 4. So I will start with Clerk McNary. Please go ahead and foster discussion.
Thank you. I think I'm in agreement overall with putting together some type of system or procedure or something in writing that would, I think, lay out more clearly our role with regard to communications and the public, how we interact with Dr. Porras, whether it's like, is it an emergency? Does it deserve a text message? Do I need to bother you at 10 p.m. on a weeknight? Or is this something that belongs in an email because it's just was a thought bubble I had and needs to wait. I would love like us to all have the same protocols as far as it goes with contacts of that nature so that, you know, we're all on the same playing field, I guess, for lack of a better word, and also to respect your boundaries. I think as far as emails coming in from community members about hot topics or just from the public right now, I can say as a member of the public who used to write in, I didn't know if like I'd get an email back from the board president, if that was representing the whole board, or if I just wasn't hearing back from the 4 other trustees because I never heard anything. So I think as transparent and upfront as we can be about how we're going to handle these types of communications and then to stick to that is really important for how we foster and start to build relationships with the community. So I would like to see us figure out our protocols as far as communicating out with the public, especially with email and with regard to communicating with district admin as well.
Jen, anything specific that you're kind of snagged on, would like clarification?
I think as far as like our protocols with regard to communication with the public, our protocols with regard to communication with a member of the press that might contact us, our protocols with regard to like, what is the chain of command and who and how do we resolve issues? I would love us to just all sit in the same room and succinctly go through it. I don't know what the answers are. I don't know what everybody else feels would work best, but I think we need to.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're raising the signature point is also valid because that was a question I had when I became a trustee is like, do we have a protocol for what goes in our signature? Our naming protocols or anything like that? I mean, do we want one? I don't know. Things to think about.
Okay, so we'll continue on. So Trustee Otmar, anything to add, like questions that have popped up since you've been on the board that you kind of like, I'm not sure what to do with this?
Oh, there's many, but for this, I think communication is such an important piece of what we're doing. And for myself, if I send an email, it is nice to be recognized that somebody has read my email. It feels good to get an email back knowing that I've been heard or seen, acknowledged. As a trustee, as an individual trustee, responding to an email by just saying, I want you to know I've read your email and thank you for reaching out. I'm very comfortable with forwarding the email to Ralph, and then if it just came to me, and then perhaps just saying our president will reach out and explain further. I think you do a great job of communication with the public from the emails that I've read. And so I'm really comfortable with that because you do kind of represent us as a board. And So I don't know if that's, kind of individually just responding to the public by saying your email has been received, because we really kind of all we can say, As far as pronouns go, I think it should be individual. I like to have that in my signature, but if somebody, I don't want to put a protocol in place if somebody is not comfortable doing that. I think it's a personal choice. So,
Okay.
that's all I have.
Thank you, Elliot.
Yeah, thank you for this topic too. I was hoping we would get broader, recognizing the short time we have, it's not possible, but talking more about how the district engages with the public as well, and focusing on ways to hone that message, stuff that we identified as important ongoing things. So recognize this is not the time for that. I would like to know, I agree with Trustee Otmar on the responses. One thing, this is just me probably being a bit of an over worrier, is I always worry saying, thank you for your email. I will leave it to the president to respond. You might not respond. So I don't want to also put, and I know as a public member, that has happened to me when I wrote the board in the past. So that's one area where I was wondering if there would be an opportunity, again, within Brown Act, like, could there be a response Google Doc that you work on that the board has view access, but no edit access to? Or is that by itself conducting board business, just so that we know you're responding and we can say that more,
Like a better tracking system.
yeah, just to know that when I say that you're responding, I know you are. And it's not to say that you're not doing the job, but there's lots of reasons why, you may have talked to that person at the grocery store instead, or whatever it is. That was one of my thoughts. The other one, and this is a new one because I didn't see it in there, is the question of social media. I have a, leftover page that I have as a board member that I like to use, and I like to put stuff out there, but we don't really have a district policy on that. So I sometimes will post things and then remove them, and then post and remove, because I don't know what I should and shouldn't be doing. So I guess that's another thing I think would be useful for us to have kind of policy going forward on social media. I love a lot of the information you provide. Is it, is the page that you run, Trustee Swanson or Trustee Carolyn, something that represents the board? Is it representing you personally? Is there an opportunity for it to represent the board and amplify the district message? Should we stay away from it completely? Don't have an answer, but would love to discuss those kind of things as well.
I think the social media piece might be a really good one for, I think it might be a really good one for when DWK is here. We can really dig into that and talk about it. It's a great question and we should all talk about it. So thank you for bringing that up. Who haven't we heard from? Brian, have we heard from you? Please.
The thing that's kind of stuck in my craw most right now is to make sure that because earlier today when you talked about some of the emails that you got were things that I definitely didn't get.
Yeah, we got to fix that, I
For
think.
us to be able to see those, I think whenever any of us get an email, we should just take a look and make sure that if we're the only one, or if it seems like we're the only person that got it, it should go to Ralph, and then Ralph can share it with everybody else, and maybe we all were BCC'd on it, who knows, but just to make sure that we're seeing those things. I do like the idea of there being some response, especially if it's just basic information coming from the board president. Well, this is what's going on, or you may have had incorrect information or whatever to do that. I usually respond just saying, thanks for your email, it was read and received, and I leave it at that. Sometimes I'll respond with a little bit more, always within the guidelines of what we have here, making sure that I'm not speaking for the board. Sometimes if it's from a student and they've written a great email, I'll take a minute to respond back and make sure that they know that they were heard, but again, within the confines of what we have here already. So those are my thoughts on it, really, just making sure that we all see what the correspondence is.
Okay, so let's see. So I'll let you know a couple of things I've been doing, and I would like to have your feedback on that, how you guys feel about it, or just maybe to understand why I'm doing something. Even just tend to think a lot about details. So like even just the detail of responding to someone and addressing them. So like say someone writes to us and they sign their name, Sally Smith, and they put their pronouns, and their pronouns are they, them. And so so I'm like, okay, how do I respond to this person? Do I say Mr., Mrs.? What is it? Because it isn't the proper way to address is not Mr. and Miss. So I'm sitting there thinking, Googling, asking my girlfriend who's a communication professional, what do I do? And she said, you know what I do? I write Dear Sally Jones or Dear Sally Smith. She writes dear and the first and last name, and then you're not worried about the pronouns and you're not accidentally calling somebody, or even can even be as simple as someone who has the name Max could be used as a girl or boy, and then you're accidentally calling somebody Mr. So-and-so, and it's a woman, and you are demonstrating how you're not that connected with that person. You don't know that person. So that's how I respond in the address line. And if you all wanted to adopt that, you're welcome to. It's been actually a huge relief and super easy, and I love it. And I just copy their name exactly how they've signed it, and I feel like I'm addressing them properly. Let's see. As far as besides emails coming into the board and going out, well, I'll finish on that topic, I guess. So when emails come in, many times they'll be talking about something that I actually don't know anything about because it's something really specific that took place at a school, right? And I'm not really supposed to know anything about that because we're the board, we're policymakers, and we shouldn't really be diving too deep into those things anyways, because it's not our role. And we'll end up slowing down or just ruining some situation that's already in progress. So, so when the emails come in, I typically ask Ralph for guidance. What's going on with this? Not asking him so that he's explaining it to me and so that I have some input on it, but like, how are we going to respond to this person? So if you've appreciated any of the responses, they're most likely majority have come from Ralph's pen. So, but anyways, I think that's really important for legal reasons too. So if any of you are getting an email, even if it's not coming, to all of us, if it's just coming to you, there can be kind of hidden legal ramifications in there that you might not realize. So I'm wondering if we should kind of usher most of the emails to Ralph. They're public documents anyways. I know when somebody writes in as an email, maybe they don't realize that it's a public document. I mean, it can be searched for and discovered, and it's not confidential. I will say if somebody says, talks to me verbally or an email and says, please don't share my name, I'm not ready for that. I really just want information on this topic. I don't share their name. I'll just tell Ralph somebody didn't want their name shared and blah, blah, blah. And so I think we should talk about that too, because we've got folks staff members and community members and whoever who reach out to us in that format as well. So this is like such an onion to peel back. Anyways, so I think going forward, it sounds like we all would like to see as many emails as possible so we can all be on the same page, and it's not because we're trying to snoop on each other or any nefarious anything. It's just really important because we're all getting together, discussing and making decisions about the district. So it's good to have this information. So Ralph, your office, do you prefer when we get an email for us to email it to you and Mandy or just you?
What we have been practicing, is a great conversation. My job is to try to keep you out of Brand Act trouble. Right. And so,
Yes.
I think the practice that we've had in the past is one that most districts follow for that reason. Forwarding an email to me is great. And I would say include Mandy as well. We typically both get it, but Mandy always makes sure I got it. And then typically what has happened is I'll then forward that to the rest of the trustees. If there's I'll work with the president wants to make a response, you'll oftentimes hear from me, please see the following response from President Carolyn regarding this issue. And then I'll have forwarded the response she gave. So then you've got the email and the response that was given. And I'll do that every single time that's forwarded to me. And so if you send something to me, what I'll do is I'll make sure that President Carolyn sees it so she can respond and then get the response back to you. And that way, the way it's arranged in the district office anyway is the listserv that goes to you, you can't reply back to. And that's just just because the accidental reply, it happens, sometimes that just is an automatic trigger, that it's a blockade that just prevents that from happening accidentally. And sometimes you'll see an email that's sent to you all, to me, and I've blind copied you all, or an administrator will blind copy you all. Again, same idea. That way there can be no misunderstanding by anybody that there was a Brown Act violation. So that would be the preference to Mandy.
You
and
and
I.
Mandy.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then if you are responding to one, if it comes to the whole board and you're going to craft a response, you're absolutely welcome to send the email to me with the response, and then I will forward it to the whole board saying this response came.
Okay, so what about this? How do you guys feel about this? Say an email comes into Dr. Hazen and it's just Dr. Hazen and he is like, I'm not sure how to respond, blah, blah, blah. What if we say that Dr. Hazen then in that moment, he would forward it to Ralph and Mandy and say, hey, what's going on? How can I respond, knowledgeably to this person? And Elliot responds. And then once he does, he forwards that to you and you forward it to the rest of the board.
It's up to you all.
I mean, I don't see why we can't do that, because I feel like when an individual is writing in, if they're really singling out one trustee, they may have some sort of connection with that person and want them to respond, not it to go through some weird filter and then some stranger, whoever is president, write them back. It's a little off-putting to get an email from somebody else, so I don't know.
I agree with that. I like that idea. I think it's more personal. So yeah, I take back the president only responding, but I agree with that. I think that looking at it from my own perspective, if I emailed somebody, I would want a response from them. So,
Okay.
So yes.
And since
forwarding
we
to Ralph
are
would be good.
agreeing to run it through Ralph,
Mhm.
I mean, he's the one we're going to be asking anyways. And so why not have it be whoever gets the email? And then if Ralph then forwards that response, then the whole board sees it. So that kind of checks off that need as well. I think it's a valid need, a valid ask. Okay. Okay, so that's what we will do. So if y'all get an email, now if y'all get an email and it's clear that it's coming to all of us, I would say safely assume that I am going to jump on that. And I think a reasonable amount of time is like within 24 hours, 24 like business hours over the weekend. Like maybe I'll wait until Monday, especially if I'm needing to check with Ralph to get back. So is that a reasonable amount of time for response time? Do you think like one business day is valid? Okay, what do we ask of our teachers when they get emails from?
It's 24 to 48 is typically
24.
what they've
Shush
responded.
over there.
It varies.
It varies. Okay, I just don't want to, I don't want to hold the board to less of a standard than what we're asking the teacher.
Yeah.
We can't let it sit, and
Yeah.
so we'll
Okay.
email it back when we get a message at midnight, and some will wait till like more.
Okay,
And there are times when if it's it needs research. We will also sometimes respond, thank you for your question. We need some time to research this. We'll be getting back to you in a couple of days, just trying to guesstimate about the timing, because sometimes it's going to take some time to get some
Bless you.
responses and do that. So.
okay, so does that, is that clear, or do we have any more questions about that? Like as a trustee, when an email comes in to you, you're gonna forward it to Ralph and Mandy, unless it's something you don't need to, honestly. If it's like, thank you so much for having a wonderful assembly, you write back and be like, you're so welcome. I'm so glad you wrote to me. Thank you so much. And then you can forward that straight to Ralph and Mandy and ask them to forward it to us. If you like. Okay. When we have meetings and we are talking about our written communications that come out, at the top of the meeting, I have always just assumed something about those. And I've just assumed that we're just supposed to be disclosing emails that are from external entities. Like I'm not talking, I don't at the top of the meeting say, I got 17 messages from Ralph and we were talking about this, that, and the other. So is that what you all have been assuming as well? External emails, but not sales emails? Because I do get several sales emails and I just delete them in their spam. Okay, so we're on the same page with that. The other thing is, kind of other side to this is the communications to the board from Ralph. So we typically get a week, the board has asked in the past, I should say, for a weekly update from Ralph's office, right? And that will come out on a Friday typically. So that kind of started me, I want to say like maybe roughly a year or two ago. And I was under the assumption it was going to come out every Friday. It actually comes out not on board meeting weeks and not on weeks that we're on break. And so it doesn't come out every Friday. And it used to just be an email from Ralph, like he would, I assume it was you writing it. It was a very, I don't want to say intimate, and maybe intimate's the wrong word, but it was a very, it was just a personal, it was like this, hey, this is what's going on. It wasn't a newsletter format. It was just a real simple. I retract saying intimate. That was the wrong word. Okay. But now it's kind of almost become newsletter format, and there's other departments who are kind of adding information to it. So as a board, I think Ralph is open to us asking however we would like to get the updates. Personally, I am so fatigued from newsletter formats and from extra departments chiming in. I really treasured the old way, where it was just Ralph sitting down, maybe throughout the week, he's like, oh, I'm going to include that in the board update. And then you sit down and you're like, hey, and it's like, I'm getting a letter from a coworker and it's just an email. That's really simple. So, how do you all feel about it?
Fully agreed. I'm against pomp and circumstance except when necessary. So
Okay.
happy to get a simpler email, especially if it means less work for everyone involved.
Okay. Okay. Laura, have you seen one of these emails? Because I don't know if since December, have you seen a update from Ralph on a Friday? Okay. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I'd agree. Simpler is better.
Okay.
Simpler for everybody involved. So if it's easier just to write up the brief letter, and I would agree that there's a lot of information that comes in. So as simplified as possible, I would appreciate that greatly.
Okay. Even bullet point format is
I
fine
love
with
bullet
me.
points. Yes.
Something quick
Bring 'em
like
up.
that. It
Yep.
doesn't have to be,
Mhm.
but let's hear from Clerk McNary because I don't want to.
I agree with trustees Otmar and Hazen. I think we have received as new trustees a couple of the board report or the reports from Dr. Porras. And they kind of read like they're updates from different departments that all got put together. And I love the idea of something more streamlined because when I start reading that, it's like a lot of information. Like I feel like I've gotten every update in HR. And I don't know if we need that much every Friday if we're getting, just the streamlined version, I think would be more useful for my reading purposes.
Ryan?
I'd agree. I mean, the simpler, the better. And if we have questions, we can always ask and get more detail. But I think in the interest of your time, the time of the entire staff, our time.
Yeah, it's like
it's like,
started
let's-
imagining all these department heads are going, oh, I got to give Ralph my update for the board. And it's like, oh man, that's not what I was hoping for. So, okay. So that's good direction. So it's 9:53. Unfortunately, I guess we should close this topic and move on to the last one, which is the future agenda items, which is kind of exciting because now we have, sorry, my voice got so high there. Now we have this online way of entering in future agenda item requests. And if you all notice in the packet, the very last page includes 2 agenda item requests that we got from members of the public. We redacted their personal information and left in there the request itself. I just thought that was really cool and a really transparent move. And so if anyone would like to add a future agenda item, there is a link online. And okay, so would anyone like to add a future agenda item? Because we do need to submit it in writing now too. So go ahead.
I'll mention quickly, it was just based on one of the emails, but
Yes.
the idea of having potential parental, if not children involvement in the replanting plan that was brought up. That was one of the emails we got, like, so I'd love to have maybe a discussion on that of, is there a possibility of forming a committee or, to help Director Anderson with that process.
Oh, planting. Like planting? Okay, got it. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it's okay. I didn't hear it.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that email yet. We got an email today, Ralph, from it was a really nice, it was a really cool email, in my opinion. It was a parent asking if when we replant the trees, like the ones that fell down and were removed, if there could be student involvement or maybe curriculum involvement in that, so.
Okay.
Do we want to
Yeah.
have that as a future agenda item, or is that just something we can plug in? or-
I think it's something we can talk with Director Anderson and
Okay,
Mr. Jordan here. We can figure something out. I think that's a great idea, and we just need to kind of figure out what that would look like.
okay. Okay, and then, I wrote on here exit interviews that came up during the meeting, but actually, Laura, I'm gonna let you take that one away. If that's something you want to do, then you can, talk about it and submit it in writing, to the board.
Was this the topic that was earlier on the exit interview request?
Yes.
So we already have that now noted as quarterly.
Oh.
We don't need to list it if you don't want. I just confirmed it. So we'll get the first one out within the next couple of meetings, and then we'll plan quarterly or thereafter to get those to the board. So,
Then
Incredible.
done.
Okay, great. Clerk McNary.
I was going to see if the board would be in favor of adding a resolution for March to recognize Women's History Month, and I can submit that in writing as well. So hopefully that would go on the first March
March 2nd.
agenda. Mhm.
Okay,
and you can also, if you like, or we can help you with that, to contact County Office of Education, because usually they have those templates to work off of. So,
Terry.
yeah.
Pimentel.
So if you need.
Pimentel.
Pimentel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That, I was hoping also, were we gonna have a date set for the March meeting for volleyball? Do we know where that's going to be yet?
We're aiming for March, the first March meeting.
Okay.
We have the information. There's a lot of, it's going to be very expensive, which is fine, but we just need to get the numbers together so
Mhm.
that we have the information for you, so you can see the whole palette. But we're looking at March, the 2nd, I think it is.
Okay.
So I've talked with Principal Garcia, and we're getting that put together.
Okay. And then I think the only other thing I had for March was we're gonna add the CSBA policy review after
Yeah,
President Carolyn and I.
Yeah, we just needed to get it. Yeah, we didn't put it on because we weren't sure.
Okay, got it.
When it would be ready, so we didn't want to rush you. So
Probably later.
either one of the 2 March meetings, if you just let us know, we can get that put on.
Okay,
I think the 16th would be good.
that sounds good.
Um,
The board self-eval, we had tentatively at May 11, that special meeting that Dr. Portis and I put in the calendar if we want to add a date specific for the board self-evaluation. Not sure.
And that currently is just listed as TBA, right? So you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I think Dr. Portis, you had said about our cultural proficiency update that's going to be coming in March, April.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
we
you.
want to confirm with Dr. Flores first.
Okay.
And Dr. Ravelin.
Okay.
Mm.
That's all I have.
Trustee Brian?
I was gonna bring up elementary school reconfiguration to get that back, just to discuss it more, but I'm not quite ready. Just I want to think about the language that be careful about the wording on that. So I think that's the only thing for me right now, but that's another meeting away, I think, before I bring that up.
And then the existing list of things, if we can run down them really quickly and maybe delete a few things. We have Teacher of the Year recognition, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ralph, you said you had kind of did an informal question to the unions, and they were maybe leaning towards like a celebratory lunch.
That was the initial conversation. We've asked them to pull for us still. So we're still waiting to hear back. We haven't, I'm
So we'll leave this on here.
here. So yeah, there.
All right. Should we just remove discuss proposal of skate park because it's going to come to us at some point?
Yeah,
So,
we can. We talked about that last time. We just left it on as a placeholder, but yes, it's going to come to us at some point. So
okay, which I'm excited for. So the removal is in no way,
Yeah.
leaning one way or the other, but just, we don't need to have it on the list.
Quick question, is school housing in that same boat? Is that something we're expecting to come back to us, or housing on school sites, or is?
That is the next one. And I was gonna, I think as a board, we need to talk about, are we interested in that at all, or are we not? And then we need to, it's such a big one.
Yes.
I would almost say it needs to be one of Ralph's goals or some other kind of format instead of just, it can't just be like, hey, you want to talk about it at me? Like it's an ongoing project. So, but Ralph, I don't want to speak for you. Is this something, what do you?
The last we left, the city was working on this project and they were going to get back to us. And we knew that they wouldn't be getting back to us until at least towards the end of this school year. So it's been sitting there because we just are wait and hold, because any conversation around that is really going to be coming mostly from the city because they want to cooperate and they have access to funds that we don't have.
Okay.
So that's why we were waiting. But I expect to hear back from them, but it's going to be a bit of time.
I just have to interrupt all of us for a second and make a motion to extend our meeting until, we'll just say until 10:30. We'll be done way before that, but to extend open session until 10:30, if I can have a second on that.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by Elliot Hazen. Okay, so discuss housing on PGUSD property. Ralph, would you like that to remain there or be removed? And again, in no way
Up to you all.
saying that we want to do it or not.
Did you want to take a vote on your motion?
No, I
President
didn't.
Carolyn?
No, thank you so much. Yes, roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary,
Aye.
Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
Trustee Otmar,
Aye.
Trustee Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, keep housing on the on the list or remove it. Elliot, go ahead.
I guess I would love to see it as a discussion before it comes back to us. But
Okay.
that's a personal preference, because I think it's something we, especially given some of the comments we heard earlier tonight,
Mhm.
we should be thinking about ways to attract and keep teachers in our district.
Okay, Josh, were you thinking like end of the year? You would have more info for a discussion, or what were you had said something earlier about that.
I mean, I'm pretty new to the discussion within this district. I'm not new to the discussion countywide about teacher housing. I need to get brought up to speed, and as Dr. Porras mentioned, I know we're still needing to interface a bit with the city on this, so
Yeah,
closer to the end of the year. Fiscal
we
year.
could remove it and I could stick it on here. Okay, so maybe I'll put it on for like, just to check in with you guys in April for May. Okay. Okay, so we can remove it. California Healthy Kids Survey presentation, do we still need that on here? Because that happens naturally. We get that presentation, correct?
Correct. We do. So it'll come. It's on the other calendar. So
Okay,
I think it was
let's
put there just as a reminder, but it will.
Yeah, we don't need a reminder, I don't think. Okay. Update regarding cultural proficiency trainings for staff, that's coming.
Mhm.
Board cultural proficiency trainings, those are coming, so I don't think we have to have that on here either, because that's part of the whole shebang.
You want to pull them both? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Update on health education offerings. Who added this one?
I did.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is something that fits in better with our goals discussion.
Yeah, perhaps. Shall we pull it and we can add it later
Let's pull it for now.
with more clarity? Okay.
We'll be getting an update anyway, separately. So
Wonderful.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. And dyslexia screening, we are gonna talk about that again in March. So, okay. So that's there, but it's gonna come off because it's gonna go into the March one. Okay, and add volleyball as a sport, added, right? March 2nd, okay. Agenda item, yeah. Unfortunately, not that easy to do, to add the team. Okay. Okay, and then board, how do you feel about keeping essentially like a miniature ongoing kind of governance conversation built into each meeting? My hope for that is that we can kind of reduce the burden on our 3-hour chunk of time. But also don't feel pressured that you need to do it because there's an idea I had. So how do you feel about keeping that on for next meeting?
My thought is that if we don't give it some structure and organization, then I don't know how beneficial it will be just to throw out a governance unless we have some plan for topics or areas that we want to address.
Mhm. Okay, that's great. So we don't want it to just be generic, right? We want it to be addressing a certain topic, like tonight's we addressed communications. Is there a further topic that any trustee has seen that we can do kind of a little miniature session on? Or are we good with just having this one done? Go ahead, Elliot.
I guess I'd say, I love the idea of having it as a placeholder if things are proposed, if that makes sense. Like, so we don't need to have it necessarily, but
Mhm.
encouraging the board and potentially even the district staff to come up with some ideas of this might be a good governance thing, just, to chew on. And then we remove it from your nice little organized list.
Okay.
And put it onto the agenda.
Mhm. Okay, so it sounds like next meeting, we don't need one. Brian, is that okay with you?
No, I like what Elliot's saying there. It's like, we know it's there. It's a reminder if there's something,
We
look,
feel
kick in the
comfortable with
brain,
the
but we don't
email.
have, we don't have to do it, but it's good to think about it, that,
Okay.
we're always wanting to assess those things if they come up. So, yeah.
Okay. Yes, we
Just ask a clarifying question. So is the proposal then to leave it on the agenda without a plan for what to talk about?
No, it
Okay.
would be to remove it from the agenda. But maybe just for all of us to know, if there's something that's kind of bubbling up consistently and you feel like, hey, we should talk about this as a board, we have that as an option. We don't have to wait for a special session. We can do a little miniature session together at the end of a meeting.
And if I may recommend, just one thought that might tickle your brain. The governance handbook is there and it's an old one. And obviously, well, it's an old from last year. So, and I know ultimately the board as a whole typically has liked to review that and revise it to the taste of the new board. So there are always topics there. So if you look through there, you certainly may find something that sparks your interest. So
Mhm.
just a thought.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I had a silly idea of doing one next meeting with, everyone's gonna groan when I say this, but a team building exercise. And I have a specific one in mind, but we're not gonna do it next time. So maybe we'll do it if we have time in the March meeting, because I think March 2nd will be a really full meeting and we'll have a lot of folks here about the volleyball team, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay. And a procedural question, we're not adjourning fully because we're just adjourning open session. So Ralph, what should I do?
So yeah, you'll adjourn you'll adjourn open session, going back into close. You can
Okay.
say adjourn into close. The requirement for returning from closed session is that you have to have a report out.
Okay.
The whole board doesn't need to be here for the report out. You can just simply come back and say the board discussed as you normally do when we come back from closed session. And I'll be here
Mhm.
to hit the record button and then turn the record button off.
Okay.
Typically in the audience isn't around at that point in time. So it's just, and then someone needs to just come back. That's all.
Okay, great. So we're gonna adjourn open session at 10:08 and head into closed session.